All right, Doctor. I got Saad. Thank you so much for your time. You've wrote multiple publications, books. You've been everywhere, but your current book that you get on pre-release on July 25th. I think what a time for a book like that to come out with everything going on in the world, and all you got to do is look at stats. And for a guy like yourself to dive into that, not that you haven't before, but you had to have seen. And I always like to ask people how they got where they're at, but I will get to that later. But I've seen guys write these books, and they're taking advantage of the time that we're in. So, it's a crappy time, whatever. So I'm just going to reword something, put it out because I have a big following, and make money. But obviously, if anybody knows anything about you, that's not the type of guy that you are. It's true.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. A pleasure. I would have loved to meet you in person as we were originally supposed to. Hopefully, we'll do that another time. I'm always envious of people who either live in Southern California or, in your case, I think it's Palm Beach. So consider yourself envied, sir.
I told Tony, no, you better fly his ass in here within a month or two. Or if I schedule it, sir, you'll be in London.
Thank you for that opening question. So the way that I thought about writing this book, I actually discuss it in the first chapter of the book. I found that oftentimes whenever I would weigh in with something positive in my social media engagement, that oftentimes was the stuff that would get the most, positive feedback. So of all the times that I've been on Joe Rogan's show, probably the clip that is the most commented on is when I described, what was my secret to losing all the weight that I did and going back to being slim.
Yeah.
And so I'd never thought about sort of entering the happiness, book writing market, but I saw the kind of reaction that it instilled in people. And they often wrote to me saying, you always seem to be playful, even when you're dealing with serious issues. You always have a sense of humor. There's always a twinkle in your eye. What's your secret, Dr. Saad? So then I thought, the last book, The Parasitic Mind, was about, negative
in your mind
brain worms that infect our brain. So I thought, well, why don't I now complete the circle and write a book about positive mindsets, about positive ways by which we can tackle life. So it's really a combination of a lot of personal anecdotes. That's what makes it truly unique. And then coupled with ancient wisdoms and the latest science, from neuroscience, from well-being research, from happiness research, put it all together. And hopefully I've come up with something that people will enjoy.
Yeah. And real quick, I watched that when it came out. Why'd they take that down? Doc lost 87 pounds. He was doing 10,000 steps a day.
Oh, much more than 10,000. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
10,000.
Sorry, man.
No, just because I want people to get the right prescription.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I do. So I haven't done less than 10,000 since June 2019, but my average is usually between 15 and 20,000 a day.
Wow.
And between 15 and 1,700 calories per day. That's how I lost 86 pounds.
86 pounds.
And they pulled it? What?
They pulled. Yeah. Why did they pull that?
I don't think they pulled that one. You're thinking about the Joe Rogan episode that they yanked down?
Yeah.
It's not that one. I think it's the one before that, or maybe 2 ago, where he used in our conversation. I mean, I'm not sure, but I think it's because he used the N-word.
Oh, jeez.
At some point, we were discussing something, and he said the N-word. And I remember thinking, oh, boy, this is going to come back to haunt us. And I think that's the one that was yanked, not the latest one with the weight loss.
Yeah, I was just watching the clips of that one because I watched in the other ones when you were in the Red studio and everything else. Yeah. And, bringing up the weight loss, that goes into your book about resilience.
Exactly. So in one of the last chapters, I talk about the anti-fragility of failure and, the importance of persistence and resilience. And so, in the same way that when you complete a marathon, I mean, I know it sounds like a cliche, but when you complete a 42.2 kilometer marathon, which is 26 point something miles.
No,
It
thank you.
really is one step at a time. And at some point, 4 hours into the run, I did 2 marathons, by the way, in
Whew.
85 and 86. And both of them I finished in the 4 hour range.
Well,
It's one step at a time. So when it came to the weight loss, it's very hard when you try to imagine the amount that you have to lose. You feel desperate. I mean, how am I ever going to lose, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds? Well, there is no magic recipe. It literally is making the exact correct choice every single day for 18 months. And then suddenly you get on the scale and you're a svelte 170 pounds. I mean, it really, but so what I did is I tried to break it up. Why don't I try to get to, because the highest I was at was 256 and I was 256.
And how tall are you, Doc? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I'm like 5'7" on a very good day when my hair is spiked. So I'm the average soccer player, the smaller, skillful soccer players. So, I'm not a 6'4" guy. So 256 for a guy my height was really, now I wore it well in the sense that it was distributed. It's not like I was super skinny with a massive belly. And so I could I clearly was much heavier. You could see it, but I wore it reasonably well. But I knew that, I was getting into my 50s. I had young children. And I thought, okay, well, COVID is here. We can't go anywhere. Let's turn this dreadful pandemic experiment into something positive. Why don't I use this opportunity to lose all the weight that I've been meaning to lose? Because I had always been very thin until about the age of 25. I was grossly underweight. I don't know if you've ever seen, I post these clips when I was a young soccer player with the 8 abs and so on. Well, that was me until about 23, 24, 25. And then once, my soccer playing days were over, I started putting on slowly weight. Here's 10 pounds. Here's another 8. Oh, look, I just hit 200. Oh, look, I just hit 225. And so what I basically did is I just set these markers. Why don't I try to lose in the next 4 months, 20 pounds and try to maintain it? And bit by bit, here I am, 170 pounds. So you can do it.
And I see that you implemented that in the book, Truth and Happiness, the 8 secrets for leading a good life, just with that resilience alone that you're speaking of. But that, can you pull up tab 2? His book, which you can pre-order now and comes out July 25th. But when you say resilience, okay, that's part of it, and you speak about it, and it's a marker in the book here. But when you get too resilient, whether it's work or you become an extremist or so on and so forth, so if you get obsessed with losing that weight, walking no less than 10 steps, another part in your book is, still having spice, still having moderation, so on and so forth. How do you balance the two?
Yeah, fantastic question. So in an earlier chapter in that book, I have a whole chapter on, everything in moderation, which of course not only the ancient Greeks, there are many different philosophical frameworks had thought about the idea of. Now, everything in moderation could be mathematically demonstrated with an inverted U curve, right? If you do too little of something. So think about, for example, perfectionism. If you're not at all perfectionist, let's say you're writing a book. Well, if you're not at all perfectionist, you don't check your facts carefully. You're not very careful in checking your references. You're not detail oriented. If you're too perfectionist, so either too little or too much, if you're too perfectionist, as I am, well, when you receive the galley proofs of your book, you go into a whole anxiety episode so the galley proofs, for those of you who don't know, is, the final version of the book, that this is your last chance to go through it to identify any errors, because otherwise it's going to press, it's going to print. And so I sit there and I obsess over every single syllable so that, I will spend days and days reviewing every single detail with the hope of maybe finding one comma out of place. Well, that's putting me too far on the other end of the curve, right? I'm too perfectionist. Instead of having spent 2 weeks reading the galley proofs, I had spent 1 week. Maybe that would have increased my productivity to pursue other things. So, and what I show in that book chapter is that inverted U, the everything in moderation, is probably the singular most important universal law for leading the good life, right? And so Aristotle himself, the ancient Greek philosopher, had talked about the golden mean. So he said, for example, that if you have a soldier who is very cowardly, well, that's very bad. But if you have a soldier who is reckless in his courage, well, that's also very bad, because he's going to basically martyr himself. He's going to kill himself in a reckless way. That there is some point in the middle, some sweet spot, some temperance. And so to your question, you always have to be mindful of that inverted U, because it applies across so many contexts. Can I maybe mention one or two other examples of the inverted U?
Yeah, take your time. Click on read more, because it's interesting. Go ahead. Yeah, take your time. Take your time, because under the description.
Sorry, I can't.
Because I'm very into the way ancients did things, because they didn't take pills. They didn't do this. They found the way, you know?
Exactly. Look, let's take, for example, intensity of exercise and the efficacy of the exercise. That itself turns out to be defined by an inverted U shape, meaning that if you exercise at a too low intensity, you don't get your cardiovascular system, to be at the right range. If you exercise with too great intensity, that's also has all sorts of negative downstream effects. And so there is a sweet spot in the middle. Let's take, for example, jealousy in a relationship. If you never exhibit any jealousy, then your partner will think that you are insufficiently vested in them. And oftentimes your partners will try to trigger jealousy in you, if only to get a reaction out of you that shows that you are committed to them. Now, take it to the other extreme. If you are pathologically jealous, then you become an abusive spouse. Somewhere in the middle between complete neglectfulness, where you never exhibit any territoriality or jealousy, and obsessive pathological territoriality, lies the sweet spot. And so what I do in that chapter is I demonstrate across a bewildering number of situations that more often than not, what makes us happy, what makes us content, is to find that sweet spot. Now, to your earlier question, it's tough to say that there is a singular sweet spot for every individual, right? Because it depends on each individual, right? But what we do know is that we all adhere to the sweet spot, to the inverted U. My optimal point may be different from yours, but we both adhere to that inverted U shape. And so being mindful of that allows me, for example, let's take resilience, right? If you're not at all resilient, you'll never meet any of your goals. If you are so resilient that you never disengage from a goal that is otherwise unattainable, then you'll be chasing shadows for the rest of your life, right? So, for example, imagine I wish to be a Hollywood actor. Well, you should jump into that dream. But if you're now 65 years old and you've been a server at a restaurant waiting for your break, well, maybe you've gone overboard with your resilience curve. In other words, you should have disengaged earlier. So pretty much any phenomenon that you can think of, Tommy, I can demonstrate to you that rule applies. Too little is not good. Too much is not good. Find that middle point.
But how do you? Let's take Elon Musk or me, for example. You know, if like I get obsessed with things and I go extreme, and I'll stay up till 5 and get up at 6 he'll tell you, for 3 months if that's what it takes to figure it out. If it's a coding thing, if it's a podcast thing, I want an award. I opened up, this is a funny story. I'll tell you when you come in, but I opened up an engineering firm for a funny reason, actually. I knew nothing about it, but I had hired like retired guys that I knew that just didn't want to be around their wife all day anymore. Anyway, I wanted an award. But I had gotten extreme with it, where I was going to win no matter what. And I always have a tough time, personally, finding a balance between when I get my mind on something that I want to succeed in and then having time to do anything else. Like, I can't tell you the last movie I watched was Air. I was curious about that movie Air with Ben Affleck. But other than that, I haven't sat down and just watched a movie in probably 3 or 4 years. So I'm one of those extremists where I'm resilient, but too resilient where I do nothing but work from day to night. So when someone's in that, and I agree with you. It's tough to be happy even if you get $1 gazillion. How do you break that?
Well, but I don't think you were being so. Let's suppose you had started that engineering firm, and it had now been 10 years into that endeavor, and every single environmental cue that you were getting from the environment was suggesting that this is a losing ship. Would you remain in that sinking ship, or would there be an exit point where you'd get out? Well, good point. If you answer that you would get out, that means you are moderating your resilience, right? So resilient is in the wrong part of the curve when no amount of incoming information could ever have me disassociate from that goal. And that can't be a good thing, right? So as I said, resilient. So if I'm not in the least bit resilience, I can't meet any objective, right? Because most worthwhile, purposeful things require some grit, some stick-to-itness. But if I say, la, 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 no amount of information is ever going to convince me that this restaurant is going to fail. I've now taken all the money from every family member, and it's now 10 years into the process, and I'm still not willing to disengage. Well, then I've clearly passed the sweet spot. So, it varies depending on the individual. It varies depending on the domain. But as I said, what is absolutely clear is that nearly all phenomena that you could think of, Tommy, whether it be at the individual level, at the group level, at the economic level, they all follow that inverted U. Even the pursuit of happiness itself follows an inverted U, if I can blow your mind, right? Yeah. If you don't follow happiness in the least bit, that's not good. If you're pathological in your willful pursuit of happiness, that also turns out to be bad. So even the pursuit of happiness follows an inverted U shape.
Right. You're right. Not that I thought you were wrong, but when I processed it, you're right. Now, another point in your book, which I can't you just bring it out earlier, like June 1st or something? Because he's got.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I was just, forgive me for interrupting.
No, I don't.
I'm just excited. To your point about you wanted earlier, I was sitting with my wife having a coffee today, and I looked at her and I said, I don't know. I'm so antsy. It's so hard to wait. And to your point, when you said earlier, you're not writing this book to make, thank you for kind of pointing to my purity of spirit. It's not even because I'm excited to make the money. You know what excites me? It's when someone sends a selfie on Twitter holding a copy of my book. They're sitting in Dubai and they say, I'm reading your book. So let's say The Parasitic Mind, my last book, and I'm loving it so much. Thank you so much, Professor Saad. That to me is like $1 million, right? So I was actually sitting with her today, and a gentleman came up to me whom I've seen at the coffee shop often, but I never thought that, he was a follower of my work. So he comes from behind me and in a very kind of warm way, puts his hands around my shoulders, and I turn like this. And he says, I just have to tell you, I just watched you on Piers Morgan's. I just love listening to you. And I thought that was $1 million right there, right? Because the fact that you can bring happiness to someone because they're consuming either your, this conversation or the books, that's what, and by the way, that speaks to something in the book that I talk about, which is try to find a profession that makes you wake up every day kind of rubbing your hands excited, right? I don't even know you prior to today, but I was excited because I'm going to be given a platform, that with a very successful platform where I can just talk about ideas and I get ultimately paid for doing that. My God, I'm a kid in the candy store. I must be the luckiest guy in the world. So if you could find some profession that offers you that kind of, existential glee, then you won the game of life.
It's because you're not American. That's why. It's because you're not American. That's why. That. Or we call it, we call it over here old school. So old school, like I grew up in Philadelphia, so did he. And in Philadelphia, it's very old school. Italians or Irish or whatever, and growing up where, if you don't hold that door for that lady, oh boy, when you get home, you're in trouble, you know? So, and through that, being raised like that, you can have all the money in the world, but when somebody sits there and reads or watches something that you came up with and developed, you can't buy that. Once you have money, you can't buy that. And then a guy like you comes along, and you're not like a showboat. And you know the guys that I'm talking about. Everybody's a speaker. Everybody's I don't know what they're called. You know, everybody's got
coach.
Oh yeah, everybody's a coach. A life coach. Yeah,
I actually wrote an article about the scam of life
coaches. Yep.
You have someone who has been divorced 6 times, but they are a marriage coach,
and they're 20, and they're 28,
Yeah.
and they're 28. They're divorced 6 times. They got 3 kids. They're 28 years old, and they're a marriage coach. Just who I want to go to, but they got a following, so they go and they buy it. So when I saw you wrote this book, really, because you know, we've seen it just in here and walking around. So many people are depressed. Everybody's got anxiety, and you know, I know you know some, but you probably couldn't even imagine how many lives you saved. And
you're very kind.
And knowing that you're from Lebanese and not America, no offense to America, but you find me, I could probably count on my hands how many Americans would do it from their heart. But you know how many lives you probably saved? I mean, really.
You're very kind.
And I'm not just saying this because you're here on some dumb Zoom. I hate Zoom. I wish we were sitting right here.
I agree. Well, hopefully we'll do it again. Look, that's one of the reasons why to your first question, why I decided to write the book, because, you know, someone will write to me, you know, explain why are you always happy? So then I write and I say something like, well, you know, I have a lovely wife, wonderful children. When I go out there and fight the good fight, then I can come home to the solace of my home. I wish you the same. To me, it seems pretty self-evident to say that, but yet the person will then write me, you know, a 6-paragraph letter saying how much that affected them, how much, you know, to your point. And so that's why I thought, you know what, let me write this book. And as you said, it's not arrogant, right? It's not, no. I'm not promising here is the absolute secret sauce to leading the good life, because that would mean I don't have what's called epistemic humility. Epistemic humility means I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I know the limits of my knowledge and what I can promise. So I don't do the self-help stuff. Just come to my seminar and I'll tell you all the secrets to life. But what I can tell you is that there is a set of mindsets that if you adhere to them, if you adopt them, it increases your chances of being happy, right? Life is a statistical game, right? You could be a non-smoker your whole life and yet regrettably be stricken with lung cancer. But if you want to put all the odds on your side, don't smoke. It reduces your chances of lung cancer. So it's in that spirit that I wrote the book. There is nothing definitive. It's not memorize my book and I promise you eternal bliss. But what so example.
Now pay me.
Earlier point, to your earlier point about opening the door and so on. So I talk about in one of the early chapters. I talk about the 2 most important decisions that you'll ever make to either increase your happiness or increase your misery: choosing the right spouse and choosing the right profession. Well, the next question would be, well, how do you know that you're choosing the right spouse? Well, you never absolutely know, but you could certainly be attuned to certain cues that the prospective spouse engages in that can either tell you he or she are a potential winner or not. And to your point earlier about being Italian and from Philly, well, although the movie I think was in New York, do you remember in Bronx Tale? And I actually talk about this in the book.
Lilo Brancato's a good friend. Yeah, he's a personal friend. Yeah.
I think I saw that he was on your show. So you must uniquely then remember the door test in the movie.
Yeah, the best part of the movie. The best part of the movie.
Door test.
Yeah.
Now, so I talk about that in the book, and then I try to come up with a instance in my life that corresponded to the door test when my wife and I met. So
Lilo's gonna go crazy when I text him after this that you put that. Oh, he's gonna. Oh boy, he's gonna get all excited down there.
So here we go. I'm giving you guys a lot of premiere content before the book is out. So I explain in the book how my wife and I met. So the way we met, which speaks to the magic and the randomness of life. I was at the gym. I mean, I was single. I was at the gym exercising, and a guy passes by whom, I didn't really know well, but he, we knew each other, and he just says hello. He just says, "Hey, professor, how you doing?" I say, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" Another guy whom I had never met had heard that salutation, so he comes up to me. Now, this is 23, 24 years ago. So I'm looking a lot. Yeah, I look like I'm 12. I don't have the white beard. I don't have the white hair. So he comes up to me. He goes, "I'm sorry. I heard this gentleman address you as professor. Are you really a professor?" I said, "Yes." He said, "In which fields? What do what are your specialties?" So I tell him. So he goes, "Oh, I'm the CEO of this company. I'm trying to set up some in-house executive education for my executives. Can I interest you in maybe coming for maybe 6 or 7 Saturdays, giving us different lectures? One week we could talk about psychology of consumer behavior, psychology of advertising, maybe your evolutionary psychology, whatever." So we struck a deal. We signed the contract, and I'm going to come to the second to this something similar to the door test of Bronx Tale. So bear with me.
No, take it. So I love how things happen. Because that's how then. For me and for the listeners, when you talk like this, like how you met your wife, so don't ever apologize, because it just goes to show you're not pulling these steps out of your ass. It's life experiences.
Exactly. And incidentally, it's funny that you're talking about stories, because one of the things that I'm very mindful in these books, whether it be the parasitic mind, whether it be the consuming instinct, which was earlier, or whether it be this forthcoming book, the other books that I've written are much more scientific and technical. So I'm only talking here about the books meant for the general public. I specifically incorporate tons of personal stories for 2 reasons. Number one, you build intimacy with the reader, right? Yeah. To simply talk in the abstract, here's what Aristotle said, here's what the latest neuroscience, that's all good. But if I could then demonstrate the phenomenon by telling you a gripping story, not only do I build intimacy with you, but we're a storytelling animal. We love to learn through stories. So I can give you all the fancy neuroscience, but that's not going to stick with you as compared to me telling you a story about how I met my wife and how it relates to the Bronx Tale. That's the stuff that makes people go, "I can't put this book down,"
Yeah, that's why I want to know. That's why I'm like, don't say sorry. Tell me. We want to know. It's good.
Thank you. So I show up first day to this company, and the elevator door opens, and the woman who is greeting me to take me to the room where I'll be lecturing to the executives turns out to be my future wife. She says, "Oh, are you Professor Saad?" I say, "Yes." "Oh, let me take you to the room." So then now we're going to come to the door test. So about or my version of the door test. So about 3, I think it was either the second or third Saturday. Remember, I think I did 6 Saturdays. I used to be, before I lost all my weight, very prone to getting sick, getting bronchitis. I used to be asthmatic. So whenever I'd get a cold, then I'd be super sick for the next 6 weeks with this really nasty kind of broncho asthma. And so one of those Saturdays, I was sick. And as I was trying to get through these 2-3 hour lectures, I was just coughing incessantly. So at the break, so I call a break. Okay, hey guys, let's take a 10-minute break, go get lunch or whatever, get a coffee. My future wife, who to me was just a nondescript, I'm very professional, right? I'm not, even though it's not the same ethical guidelines as would be the case in a university setting. This was, a consulting gig. This was with, adults in a company. I'm still, very serious and detached and professorial. Well, she goes downstairs, gets a tea, and comes back and gives me the tea as a response to seeing how much I'm struggling, with my cough. That was my door test. So someone who can be so considerate that she decides on her own that, she's feeling the empathy of this guy is struggling. He's got to get through these 3 hours of lectures. Let me go get him a tea. that to me demonstrated that she's very giving, she's selfless. And so in a sense, that was the unlocking of the door from the Bronx Tale.
I see. So you go, you're not asking her for anything. She just sees you're struggling and she takes the initiative to go down there and get you some hot tea to help you out.
Exactly right.
But Professor, all you had to do is use your last name, Saad. You could have played that card. Oh, man. You could have, my last name's Saad. Oh, you could have got a lot.
I'm going to give you another little nugget so the first time we went to see a movie, very old school, you were mentioning old school Philadelphia, we were accompanied by a chaperone, one of her friends. She didn't feel, she wanted someone to be around, which, okay, it's perfectly fine. So this is after you had finished the course and so on. And there was no grading in the course, so there was no ethical issue and so on. So we go to see a movie. We went to see, by the way, The Insider with Al Pacino. He plays a whistleblower, whistleblower who's whistleblowing on the tobacco industry. Yeah. Now, my dad had just had a health scare maybe a month or two earlier. So this is 1999. So we don't, cell phones are not widespread. And I tend to be a late adopter to a lot of these technology. I mean, I only got a cell phone, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. So I got a pager, which is not at all my style, but I got a pager in case my dad needed to reach me, with an emergency. So as we were leaving one another on that first evening, so this is another one of those cues that she's going to be your future wife, hopefully. So we agree on a set of paging codes to communicate with each other. So if she pages me 111, it means whatever. If she pages me 222, it means I'm thinking of you, literally. Okay. So we leave each other after seeing that movie. I turn the corner, so I'm no longer within her view. I'm maybe 40 meters away from her. My pager rings. I look up and I see 222. Oh. I said, I have to marry this woman. No games, no BS, no trying to establish dominant I like you. I want to be with you. No fooling around, no games. And that's it. And it happened. Sweet. So
where are they at? Where are they at nowadays? You never, you got very lucky. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
But finding a woman like that nowadays, boy, if you write a book on that one, now you have houses all over the world.
Well, but so that's the point, right? I can't guarantee you that you'll find the right one, but what I can tell you is here are some decisional steps that you can take to at least make sure you're increasing your likelihood of finding the right one. So here's another example. I won't mention names because I don't want to embarrass him or something. There's a good friend of mine who used to be a former student of mine who was dating a woman, and he found out shortly before the marriage that she had lied to him about something truly consequential that should have absolutely put on the massive, brakes, red flags, yet he didn't pay attention to those signals. He did get married, and then within a year or two, they were divorced, and all kinds of horrible things ended up happening because you didn't pay attention to all of the information. People tell you the truth one way or the other, even when they're lying to you. If you are attuned, you should be able to pick up. There is that instinctual gut feeling that you have, either that tells you that this person is the right one or that maybe they're not the right one. And by the way, one of the things that causes us to not see those cues is precisely because of the butterfly effect when we're early in a relationship, where our libidinal drives, our hormones are raging. And so we often get married to the wrong person because we think that the great sex that we're having for the past 3 months is going to carry us when we're 25 years into a marriure. And guess what? It doesn't
happen. No, it doesn't happen. We call it the honeymoon phase. You're the best guy on the planet. Tommy, you look great. Love you. Can I get you something? And then I think it's more, in my opinion, so that I get hit for this. The man 3 years later is like, what happened to the ropes we had in the bedroom? In the very beginning, you throw them away. Wait, you're going to bed at 10? What happened? Because as a man, or I should say the people I hang out with, you look at them and they're fucking miserable. They're like, I don't know what happened, because they, like you said, they were in that honeymoon phase, lost the libido, everything, and expect that to, in 15 years, especially after a kid, forget it. It's done after a kid for a little bit. But he still rocks the boat after he lost the weight, from what I saw.
Doctor, sorry, doctor. When you talk about happiness, right? I've always heard, and I truly believe this, that if you're not happy with yourself, you can't make someone else happy. And until you find that happiness, it could be a miserable time. So how do you approach or tell people, like, be happy with yourself first? It sounds very selfish sometimes, right? Like, I have to take care of me first, and it seems selfish, but how do you balance that?
Yeah, wow, that's an amazing question. Look, we all vary, just like most things in life. There are individual differences on any trait, right? So in the book, by the way, at the start of the book, I say that about 50% of your happiness stems from your genes. Now, that might sound like bad news in that it is inscribed. I either have an innate sunny disposition or I don't. But no, if 50% of happiness comes from your genes, that means there's still 50% to play for. There's the other 50% that is up to my willful decisions that I make. So to your point, we may vary across individuals in terms of how self-confident we are, how structured and integral our personhood is. But that notwithstanding, I argue that existential authenticity, and I know it's a mouthful, let me explain it, that really is at the root of self-happiness, right? So remember the ancient Greeks, there was a maxim, a Delphic maxim in ancient Greece, know thyself, right? So the first road for me to be happy is to feel comfortable in my skin. So this is why, by the way, and I sometimes struggle with this, by the way, because sometimes I wonder if I'm too authentic, maybe authentic to a fault. So for example, I sometimes will go after someone on social media, not because I am mean, because I'm hardly that, but because I would consider it inauthentic if I didn't criticize someone just because they're a friend of mine, if they're spewing bullshit, right? So I think one of the reasons why, if I may say, I exude happiness, other than the fact that I'm lucky enough to have been born with a sunny disposition, is that there are no fissures, there are no cracks in my personhood. I present myself to the world as I am, and hopefully with all of my qualities and all of my faults, and hopefully my qualities outweigh my faults, and therefore you can hopefully appreciate me. There is no way to be happy if you don't have that sense of self-worth and that sense of authenticity. Now, the reason why I sometimes question it about whether I am too authentic, meaning on the inverted U curve, have I passed the sweet spot of authenticity, is because sometimes that might cause me to not hold my tongue and burn a bridge with, but it's never out of meanness. So,
I can relate.
I'll give you
I can relate.
Can you?
Absolutely, because like say I say something to somebody, I have a tough time. I just say it how I feel it. Now they'll take it like, people or persons, they'll take it like I mean it. If I say, I cannot stand that you do this all the time. You're wasting your time. You're getting nowhere. You're watching some stupid ass show that means nothing. Why don't you just try something else and maybe you'll get interested and you'll try. And I come off, and that's just an example. It's much worse. But when it is much worse with a couple bad words in it, I don't mean it like controllive or
anything. You mean it constructively.
I mean it constructively because I care. But then people take it like, I'm an asshole, and I've lost friends, burned bridges, and then I've come to the point where I think if you weren't as authentic, then you would lose that happiness because that's you, right?
Exactly.
And if they don't like it, then fuck them. Let them go hit the fucking road.
Which, by the way, speaks to another, and there's another chapter in the book where I'm talking about regret and how to, so the ancient Greeks had this concept of ataraxia, which basically means tranquility of mind, right? And in the book, I argue that one of the things that gnaws at our existence the most is the what if, should I have done this? What if I had done that? And so, and I talk about in the book, there are two types of regrets that people typically, obsess about. There's either what's called regret due to action versus regret due to inaction, right? This is actually the guy who pioneered this work is my former, in my PhD, he's a professor of psychology, Tom Gilovich. So he basically talked about these two forms of regret, and he said that what people most regret are sources of inaction. So regret due to action would be, I regret that I cheated on my wife and that ruined my marriage. Regret due to inaction would be, I regret that I became a physician because my dad and my grandfather were physicians, whereas really I've always wanted to be an artist. So it's an inaction. I never pursued my passion. And it turns out, gentlemen, over the long term, that the things that gnaw at us the most are regrets due to inaction. Right? The road not taken. That's what really gnaws at our spirit. Now, why am I mentioning all this? Is because in that chapter, I talk about whether I should feel regretful for being the honey badger that I am. Had I modulated myself a bit better, maybe those idiots at University of California, whatever, would have given me that job, landing me in Southern California. And I remember I was having this conversation with Megan Kelly, and I actually mentioned it in the book. And she looked at me and she said, no, exactly to the same point that you said, when you said you shouldn't regret that because that's what makes you authentic. She said, no, you've built this huge audience. People resonate with you. People love you precisely because you're irascible and you tell it like it is. You're not mean. You're very kind, but you don't modulate. And so that kind of snapped it in my head, because the thing that I was thinking about, maybe I should hold my tongue, is precisely what she was saying. No, that's what people love about you. So even the one who's writing the book about regret can themselves experience a sense of regret.
And on that, and it's the little tiny sneak peek that we can only get on your book there, Professor. When somebody has that regret, and I think probably the most percentage within that would be a guy or a girl who cheated on their wife, husband, or girlfriend, boyfriend, and they sit there and they drink it away, pill it away, or they're jaded and they think every guy that they meet next, even if it's a really good guy, is going to do the same thing. How do you break that? When if you're someone listening, watching, how do you snap out of that? That's a tough thing to do. And a follow-up to that, something you had mentioned, I hear people always, and this drives me absolutely insane. What if? And the most thing that makes my head pop off of my neck, and please elaborate as long as you would like to on this one. Well, things are supposed to be like this. We should be doing this, or this isn't how things are supposed to be. And I always say, and who the fuck told, what are you? Are you the book of life that told you who came down and told you that this is how it should be? Oh, I know. And this is what I call it from Cooper. It would be fun if you would talk to Rich Cooper. He's got these 20.
Who's that?
He made $1 gazillion with this alpha male thing and entrepreneur of cars. But one of the things, and it actually relates to your book, and I want to get to it, is the committee. And boy, do I know a lot about the committee. And this relates to everything we're saying. I know I'm throwing a lot at you once, but
I'm trying to keep up here.
Sorry, but I'm excited to talk to you as well. And
thank you.
But it all relates to your book. And the committee is when, and this could be job related, as we had discussed. This is very most in relationships. You and your wife get in an argument, and you got lucky. She goes and calls the mom, the brother,
friends,
the whore friend down the street, the other bozo, the other bozo, the other bozo, the other bozo, and all the bozos and the other ones say, oh, you should leave him. Or with the job thing, oh, well, you make a lot, that's a stable job, whatever. And now you really want to be an artist, but you're not. You're working in a warehouse, with here and there you get promotions, and then you're 80 years old, and when you come down here, you'll see it. You'll see these 80-year-old guys walking around, and they're dressed in, I don't know what they had done before, but they're dressed in just crazy clothing or polos. Of course, they're with a hot girl because, all their life they work to death. But you could just see that they found what they wanted to be. And I was friends with some of them. And I said, what'd you do all your life? I worked on Wall Street and hated every bit of it. And then I would walk in and they would be painting at like 86. And I always wanted to be a painter,
Yeah, well, okay, there's a lot there to unpack. So to your,
I can repeat it later, sorry.
There are so many different places I could go. So I hope that I address all of your various threads. I'll try to tie it up. But to your earlier point when you said, you have a fight and she goes off to speak to her friend, whatever. So let me offer you some tips regarding those kinds of issues. I'm not necessarily you, but to your audience.
Please do, sir.
We never go to bed angry. Again, that sounds like a cliche, but I am allergic, and I think her too, but although maybe I might be even more intolerant of negativity. You know how when people fight, then they start pouting towards each other, there is silence. I'm not very good at that. I'm very, very communicative. Let's hash it out, then let's hug it out, and then when we enter the sanctity of that bedroom, whether there is going to be sexy time or there isn't going to be sexy time, we have to end it on a loving note. So we never, ever, literally, I've been with my wife for 23 years. We have never gone to bed angry at each other. Now, that doesn't mean that there haven't been moments of friction during a given day, but we finish it right there. We never, because when you let it languish, it's like a corrosive poison. It's eating away at your existence. It's normal for me to be angry at her for something she did. It's normal for her to be angry at me for something I did. Let's resolve it. Let's kiss. Let's say I love you and let's move on. So that's number one. I'm trying to remember the other threads. What were some other questions you asked?
Sure, I'll start with the first one. So I'm sorry I threw all them at you like a machine gun. So if you're someone who, say, cheated on their spouse or vice versa, yes. How do you get over that? Because you get stuck in that web, and then more so with this one, with a woman, they're jaded, and then they think every guy's going to cheat on them and lie to them with a man. They compare every woman, whether they want to admit it or not, in my opinion. Right. They compare every woman to that woman that they messed up with and are constantly thinking, I shouldn't have done that, whatever. And then that's got to kill the happiness. How do how do you break out of that cloak?
Yeah, so here I'm going to throw at you some evolutionary psychology knowledge from my scientific career. It turns out that the likelihood of a relationship ending if a man cheats on a wife versus if a woman cheats on his partner is very asymmetric. If a woman cheats on a man, it almost guarantees the dissolution of the marriage. It's about 90%. If a man cheats on a woman, it's only about 30%. So there's a threefold greater likelihood of the relationship ending if the woman cheats on a man. Now, if you're some idiot who takes women's studies courses at Oberlin College, then you argue that that's due to the patriarchy. It's the double standard of patriarchy.
Oh, geez.
No. The reason why that asymmetry exists, and not condoning it nor justifying it, just explaining it, is because the evolutionary threat of a woman cheating on a man looms much, much larger genetically than the other way around, because humans are a biparental species, right? Human males are actually super dads in the animal kingdom. We may not invest as much as women do in the human context, but we are still super dads. We are officially a biparental species. So it doesn't make sense for your ancestors and mine to have not cared if their women go around with 73 guys, because then I don't know if the kid that I'm going to invest in for the next 18 years until he reaches his reproductive maturity, whether he's mine or he's the sexy gardener who comes from Corfu, right? Therefore, it makes evolutionary sense for us to have evolved the emotional, the cognitive, the behavioral system that makes us very intolerant of cuckoldry, of a woman cheating on us. So right off the bat, there is a distinct asymmetry in terms of how likely it is to be a fatal reality if one cheats or the other. But the more important question might be to ask the following: should you cheat or not? Or can you reduce? Life is a trade-off, right? I'm not the ugliest guy in the world. I have, pretty high status. There's a long line of, forgive me, I'm not trying to be immodest, I'm trying to make a point. I can have a long line of possible women who I could easily get, yet I willfully choose not to, because two things: to violate the sanctity of what I have with my wife would not allow me to do that. And whatever I stand to lose, however small the probability might be that she leaves me or doesn't leave me, is not worth me pursuing those otherwise very natural urges. So it's not as though I don't see tons of women and go, oh my goodness, is she beautiful, right? Oh my goodness, can my mind go? So there is nothing unnatural or immoral for me having, responded to that stimulus. What makes me hopefully better than the next guy is that I weigh the pros and cons. I also have, not only do I have the Darwinian instinct to want to mate with many women, but I also have the Darwinian moral compass that allows me to put a stop on that instinct, right? We all have a desire to eat as much fatty foods as we can, but if you do that repetitively, you end up like Saad was at 256 pounds. But had I not done that, had I used another set of instincts to hone that in, then I wouldn't have had to lose 86 pounds. So life is trade-offs. It's perfectly understandable. Look, we are and I actually talk about this in the forthcoming book. I have a chapter on variety as the spice of life, and then the chapter title has sometimes in bracket. Right? Yeah. Why am I saying sometimes? Because for some domains, it makes perfect sense to seek variety. If you're in a monogamous marriage, well, it may not be a good idea to seek sexual variety, even though we all have that urge, and including, of course, women. Amen. Can I maybe just share with you some very strong scientific evidence that suggests that women are hardly these prudish little saints that we'd like to think they are?
Please do. Please do.
Get ready. Number one, women are much more likely to cheat when they are in the maximally fertile phase of their ovulatory cycle, meaning that their desire to shop for other genes, I mean, literally shop for other genes, increase when they are most likely to be impregnated by another man. Number one. Number two, women, if they cheat on their long-term partner, they're more likely than not to cheat with someone who is of superior genetic stock. So I'm speaking now as a woman, I may marry Bill Gates, but I cheat with the really hot gardener who's got the Olympic swimmer's body. So the ideal strategy for me is to convince geeky Bill Gates that, no, the child really looks like you, even though he's a spitting image of Rico, the Greek gardener.
Right.
No, it's
not laughing,
true.
But it's true.
Right. So that's number two. Number three, Robin, and by the way, all this stuff is in the forthcoming book. So if you like this stuff,
July. You gotta have a talk. Talk.
Exactly.
July's a little bit too long, man.
I hope I'm not giving too much stuff that they won't want to buy the book, but hopefully I'm just titillating their curiosity. This is from Robin Baker, who wrote a great book, I think it was 1996, called Sperm Wars. And I actually tried to get Robin Baker to come on my show. We know each other from scientific circles and so on. But he retired. He's probably now in his late 70s, early 80s. So he wrote back to me very sweetly, said, I would have loved to have a conversation, but I'm out of the whole thing. So he never came. Anyways, you can check out his book. It's Robin Baker's Sperm Wars. In that book, he talks about the fact that there are actually, phenotypically, there are 3 types of spermatozoa that men produce. So we typically think of the fertilizing sperm, right? There is the sort of the genetic DNA head, and then there is the vigorous tail, and then there's 250 million spermatozoa in one ejaculation. They're all fighting to get to that proverbial promised land, the egg, to fertilize it. And 1 out of 250 million will win that genetic lottery. Okay. But it turns out, according to Robin Baker, that that's not true, that there are 2 other types of, if you like, forms of sperm in a man's ejaculate. One is called blocker. The other one is called killer. The blocker spermatozoa just stands, if you'd like, at the entrance of the reproductive tract of women, blocking the possibility of entrance of another man's sperm. And killer spermatozoa don't look for the egg to fertilize, but rather they are looking for other men's sperm to kill. Now, let me close the loop on this. Sperm is viable within a woman's reproductive tract for roughly 72 hours. So for a man to have evolved the chemical weaponry to have not only fertilizer sperm, the traditional sperm that you know of, but to have killer sperm looking for another man's sperm to kill, and blocker sperm stopping another man's sperm from coming into the reproductive tract, that means that evolutionarily speaking, the likelihood that your female ancestors and mine would have very much slept with multiple men within a 72-hour period. Okay, so that's should hopefully blow the mind of a lot of men that are listening.
Yeah. First off, those two sperm guys are assholes, and and second off, I get it through evolution that the body just adapted and created that, right? Like as we evolved, yeah.
And so exactly to what you just asked, it is female promiscuity that shapes male physiology. Now let me unpack that for you. So this is another piece of evidence that I discuss in the forthcoming book. So if you look at the size of a primate's testicles across different primates, okay? So let's look at a few. Let's look at extremes. Mountain gorilla, silverback gorilla, the males are majestic. They're this gorgeous, like Hulk, Superman, 400 pounds, but probably 10 to 20 times stronger than the strongest man alive. Very, very small testicles, gentlemen. Why? Because their mating system is called, the official fancy scientific term is polygynous. Polygynous means one male with multiple females, meaning the dominant male banishes all of the other males. He has a harem, and he controls the sexual access to many, many females. Therefore, the mating system within mountain gorillas is not conducive to sperm wars, because it is very likely that the females are only being inseminated by a single male, even though some of them will go and cheat with another one. Now, let's take the other extreme, and then I'll link it to humans in a second. Chimpanzees are walking testicles, okay? Chimpanzees are massive balls. So what do you expect the females in that species? They're having sex left and right.
Left and right.
We have a fight, we have sex. We say hello, we have sex. We're in disagreement, we have sex. And not sex with one, sex everywhere. Therefore, men's or males' physiology and anatomy, in this case, the size of the testicles, are an evolutionary adaptation to female promiscuity within that species. The more the female is promiscuous, the bigger the testicles of the males of that species. So now, gentlemen, we come to what all of your millions of viewers and listeners want to know. So what about the balls of human beings? Are we on the mountain gorilla side, or are we on the chimpanzee side? Do you want to take any guesses which side we're more on?
I'm going to say the mountain gorilla side.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Okay, well, you're being a unrealistic optimist, so that tells you that your answer is wrong. We are actually closer to chimps in the sense that our testicles are not nearly as big. I mean, by the way, it's adjusted for body size, right? So what does that mean? That means that if female promiscuity is the mechanism that leads to the adaptation of male testicles, and since human males have larger testicles on average when you map all primates, that means our human females, your female ancestors and mine, were getting busy in the bushes with a few guys. So you put all that together and it shows you that both men and women have a desire for variety seeking, but we also have the desire for long-term coupling, because we have to evolve the romantic love for us to stay together long enough to raise those children until they're 18. So it's perfectly normal and natural to desire other people, but depending on who you are, you either instantiate that Darwinian instinct, or you say, you know what, I'm not going to violate the sanctity of my marriage, and I'm going to keep it in my pants. And so to answer your question in a very long-winded way, rather than succumbing to the temptation and then regretting it, why don't you think about possibly, if you've got a good marriage, keeping it in the pants, and hopefully you can grow old and happy together.
Real quick, Doctor, on that point. So nowadays, social media, TV, I mean, you're getting nonstop stuff thrown your way, right? Compared to, say, 20 years ago. And not that people didn't cheat 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, but now it seems like it's rampant, because you look at let's say a woman looking at a guy, and she looks over her husband like, man, he used to be ripped and chiseled. And then she's on her phone, and it's like this chiseled guy comes up, and it's like, because the phone probably heard her say that, so now it brings up a chiseled guy. So she's like, well, he's worthless, so let me go see. So with time, I'm saying, do you think it's gotten worse? And how do you, I guess you just turn the phone off and turn the TV off, right? You don't look at it, but it's so much information that's being thrown, and I think that's why a lot of times divorces are higher, and you could probably speak for that. But
yeah, well, by the way, I've done research that speaks to your point, scientific research, where I looked at things like, how much information do men and women look at before they decide to commit to a mate. So for example, let's say there are up to 25 attributes that I can look at. So I could look at how intelligent she is. I could look at how beautiful she is, how caring she is. So there's, how much income she makes, whatever, right? So if I were to present you with a task where I'd like you to open up as much of this information as possible, and then you decide, so you could look at as little as one attribute up to 25 attributes. How many will you look at before you stop and either say, this person is a dud, I don't want to go out with them, or you stop and say, I choose this one? Well, it turns out, as is perfectly explainable from evolutionary psychology, that women, when it comes to rejection behavior, right? In other words, how much information do I need to look at before I reject a bunch of suitors? Women arrive at that decision much more quickly than men. In other words, it takes a lot less convincing to convince women that a bunch of guys are losers than the other way around. I mean, for a guy to be convinced to not mate with a woman, she has to have tails and horns before he says no, right? Whereas it takes... Now, the answer, the evolutionary reason for that is very simple. Women are sexually more choosy because the minimal obligatory parental investment that they have to provide if they become pregnant is a lot larger than men. In other words, the cost of making a poor mate choice looms much larger for women than it does for men, so it makes sense that they would be choosier. On the other hand, when it comes to choosing decisions, like in other words, how much information do I look at before I stop and choose a mate, then women search for more information before they commit. So they use less information to reject partners, but they use more information to choose partners. Now, why is that related to what you're asking? Because what you're saying is the contemporary world, instead of it being 25 attributes, now we can go on our app and look at 75,000 suitors rather than, you know, the 7 guys that were in our village when we were in our evolutionary past. That's what, by the way, makes hookup culture so alluring to so many people, right? Certainly young people. I mean, I was already married when all the Tinder and all that stuff was happening. So I never, quote, benefited from the hookup culture in that sense. But now many, both men and women will speak exactly to your question, which is, how am I supposed to be with one person when I can get on Tinder whenever I'm feeling in the mood, and I can get the whole buffet of super sexy guys or super sexy girls and so on? It's a struggle. But again, life is about trade-offs. I wouldn't trade all the beautiful women in the world for my wife. That doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the fact that there are tons of women that I would love to be with.
But you know how I forget what bird it is, and even the monkey, you know, the alpha monkey, he'll run around and everybody stands, and he'll break trees to keep his spot to stay the alpha, so we can basically keep the woman. There's that one bird that will spend, I wish I could remember the name, I'm sure you know. This bird will spend hours flapping its feathers like this.
Peacock?
No, it's not a peacock, but there'll be like 5 of them, and maybe 100 of them, and whichever one can do its dance the best is the one that's going to get lucky that day, and that would relate to your superior, right? And these birds, I mean, they got to be in shape to do this shit.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to break it down for you scientifically, Tommy. And actually, it's in this book right here, and in this book right here. So the Evolutionary Basis of Consumption, which is a scientific book, and then the Consuming Instinct, which is a book meant for the masses. What you just described is what's called lekking behavior. A lek, L-E-K, is a physical space where typically birds, usually male birds, will enter the lek, will engage in some sort of sexual signal. It could be ruffling of the feathers. It could be a kind of vocal thing, right?
So
and what happens is all the females stand at the periphery of the lek as an audience, and then they choose who is the best one. Now, there are many examples of lekking behavior, especially with bird species. One of the most beautiful ones is there is a red-capped manakin in Central America that his lekking behavior is a moonwalk, a dance. I mean, I'm telling you, Michael Jackson should be paying royalties to this bird, because if you watch, and you can check it on Google later, you actually have to slow it to 1/500th of the speed for the human eye to be able to pick up the kind of move he does. And then the females are sitting around in the tree, and then they pick, okay, this is the top dancer, this is the guy that's got the genetic stuff that I'm looking for. Now, why does your question resonate with me so much is because that describes, by the way, 30 years of my scientific career. Because what I've done in my scientific career is take these evolutionary principles that we typically see in other animals, and I argue that consumer behavior, for those of you who don't know, I'm an evolutionary psychologist, but also a consumer psychologist. So I apply evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology to study consumer behavior. So I argue that many of the consumer choices that we make are nothing but these types of lekking behavior. So example, one of the scientific papers that received the most attention that I published was a paper in 2009 that I authored with one of my former graduate students, where we looked at what happens to men's testosterone levels when they engage in a act of conspicuous consumption, driving a fancy car, right? So the Porsche or the Maserati or the Ferrari is akin to the peacock's tail in the human context, right? So what we did basically is we brought young men, we rented a Porsche. Now imagine, I always joke, and I tell people, imagine trying to go to a scientific agency asking for money, funding
Porsche,
so that you
Ferrari.
rent a Porsche. And you're saying, I swear it's for science, guys. It's for science.
I agree with you 100%.
So we rented a Porsche. We got a beaten up old car. And when each man would come to our experiment, this wasn't the psychology experiments. Imagine if you were driving. No, we actually made them drive the two cars. They drove the shitty car. They drove the fancy Porsche, and they did it in two environments. So to your point about the birds, remember I was talking about leks?
Yeah.
So they drove the two cars either in a non-lek or in a lek. Now, what does that mean in the human context? Non-lek, you drive it on a semi-deserted highway where nobody sees you. A lek is in downtown Montreal. There is a street called Crescent Street where all of the male imbeciles drive around all night with the music blasting. Look at me, look at my peacock tail, correct?
Yeah.
So we had the men drive these two cars in those two environments. Now, what was the dependent variable that we measured, guys? Testosterone levels. How did we measure it? We measured it using salivary assays where we could then measure testosterone. And what do you think happened? When you put young men in the Porsche, exactly as you just went like this, their testosterone levels explode. It's like they've been doping for the Tour de France for the past 6 years, right? Why? Because you are imbuing me, I'm speaking now as one of the subjects, you are imbuing me with immediate high social status. Now, we know from the animal kingdom, when two rivals fight, the winner sees a rise in testosterone, the loser sees a drop in testosterone. So I said, hey, let me test this idea to show that consumers are nothing but wealthy animals.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I found. So my whole career has been nothing but taking biological principles and demonstrating that when we put on our consumer decision-making hat, we're not far from being animals ourselves.
That's amazing.
Believe it or not, I know I don't look it, but I read NCBI all the time, all the independent case studies, all of it. I'm so into it. That's why I asked you about the birds, because I think it relates to today. And that was a great study that you did. And I had a Lamborghini. I mean, I'm not a bad looking guy, but let me tell you, when I had a Lamborghini and a Bentley, I could take my pick. And nowadays, you know, oh, your testosterone's low. Here, take testosterone, blah, 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 blah. When we can find in case studies, real actual case studies, not done by Pfizer and jerk-offs like them, ones like you did, that if you put a man in a car like you just said, I know I'm repeating it, their testosterone goes up. Okay? So a lot of times I think, and I talked to him about this, I see these guys, I know a lot about this. I see these guys go into the HRT clinics and the TRT clinics, and I don't know what they're doing over there, but my head's blown off because they will give them testosterone for no reason. They don't give them any anti-estrogen. Why? So they come back and get more and pay more, right? You know that obviously.
Sure.
Why? What doctor in the right mind would give somebody, cypionate or ethanate and not give them some type of anti-estrogen? Why? Because when you come off of it, you're going to feel like shit, so you go back to get more.
Exactly.
But in case studies that were actually done like yours, just because it says 300 doesn't mean that they need to go shoot testing their ass every week. It could be lifestyle change, drive, so on and so forth.
Of course.
That was a great study.
Yeah.
By the way, to your point about you owning and all those fancy cars, one of my brothers in California, I have 3 siblings, all of whom are much older than me. They're 10, 12, and 13 years older than me. The the one who's closest in age, who's the guy who's 10 years older than me, was a very, very, very wealthy and successful .com guy from about the mid 80s to roughly the mid 90s. He amassed a gigantic fortune in Southern California. And he owned 3 Ferraris. He owned an Aston Martin Lagunda, for those of you who may or may not know what that is.
Yeah.
And, all kinds of other, peacocking stuff. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because there's a story in the book, which, again, I'm hesitating.
Don't say too much. Let it go. Just give it a tease. So there's a story in the book. Because I don't want to kill you and get you in trouble. But, and then they're like, no, you're not coming to Florida. Hell no, you're not talking to him again.
Let's just say this. He is a 5'4" guy on his best day, but he walks as though he's 6'4" for 2 reasons. Number one, he's got unbelievable self-confidence. And number 2, it really helps when you can pull out the chain key that has a Ferrari on it, and suddenly the girl is no longer concerned about you being over 6 feet tall. So having that kind of status and self-confidence is the great equalizer. I won't mention a specific story that's super cool in the book that speaks to that. But to your point, maybe it's shallow, maybe it's just evolutionary. I think it's evolutionary. Women certainly do. I'm just being charitable.
Yeah.
Look, I could. Here's another study from my work. It's not published yet. This is not actually in the book, so I'm gonna say it openly without hesitation.
That Ferrari was awesome, though, right? Yeah, isn't that awesome?
I like that.
So we did this. So this is a study I did with one of my former doctoral students, who's now himself a senior professor, shared professor. We created these 2 versions of a personal ad, like that you would find, let's say, in a dating app. And the only thing we manipulated, so there's a picture of the guy, there's all kinds of description about him, and the only thing that changed is, here is my favorite personal possession. And it was either some shitty red car, or it was a spankingly beautiful new red Porsche. That's the only difference between the 2 experimental conditions. Now we asked men and women to evaluate this guy. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Now, we asked them on many, many different traits, but I'm going to only mention one for the purposes of this conversation. How tall is that guy?
I bet he's
6'2", 6'1".
Who? No, but remember, I just said both men and women evaluate him. So what do you think happens?
Men probably say he's shorter, like short, not whatever, and women are probably he's taller, bigger.
Perfect. See, the fact that you got that shows you that within all of us is an evolutionary psychologist, because we are Darwinian beings. We understand these. Now, you could take Professor Saad's course to learn all the fancy science, but instinctually, you knew the answer, and it's exactly right. You got it. Women, and so I call these 2 effects the status elongation and status contraction effects. The women look at the guy who was in the Porsche. Oh, he was tall. Why? Because height is a cue of status, one of several cues. You having that high status car correlates with that. So magically, even though objectively he didn't magically become taller, but my perceptual lenses will make you taller. On the other hand, when you ask men to evaluate, I am most intimidated not by a guy who's got prettier shoulders than me. I'm not intimidated by that. But if you get a guy who's got higher status than me, now I'm pissed off. Now that's triggering my same-sex rivalry juices. Therefore, when I see that asshole with the Porsche, I need to derogate him. I need to insult him. So I put on my perceptual lenses that are biased. And what do I say? Oh, he must be some short little puny guy with a small penis. That's why he's driving.
I was just gonna say we would say when we were growing up, like the what do you call the trust fund kids that have the cars? We would call them pencil dicks.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the psychology is, and that's the beauty of evolutionary psychology, because the exact same stimulus, which objectively should not cause me to think you're taller or shorter just because you're standing next to a Porsche, not only does it do that to me, but it does it in opposite directions, depending on whether it's the woman who's evaluating or the man. That's the beauty of evolutionary psychology.
And isn't it funny that almost all evolution, when you look at animals, because I read about them all the time, it's almost with all of them. Even in the sea, they'll do like a lot of chameleons. And I'll get off this because maybe it's boring, but a lot of chameleons, it's like the one that can be a chameleon the most. That's the one that's going to mate. You know, things like that. You know, it's just so cool when you see that. And then when you apply it, like you had just said, Professor, you know, I don't know how anybody can deny that, you know, there's no relation. I don't know.
Well, so a couple of points. Let me first mention the chameleon part, then I'll talk about the denial of biology in a second. So in The Parasitic Mind, in my last book, this one, the yellow one.
That's a good book.
Thank you so much. I have a section that I call Male Feminists as Sneaky Fuckers. Now,
He does too.
Now that sounds as though I'm being profane in my language, but that's actually a real zoological term. And it comes from a study of a whole bunch of species, some of which are actually in the sea, others are not, but many of them are in the sea, where you have two types of males. You have the traditional phenotype of a dominant male. Then there are these other small males who can't get the girls if they try to compete on those metrics. So they pretend that they are females so that the dominant males lets them through, and then they engage in surreptitious coupling. In other words, I have to convince that, right? So then, because I knew about this phenomenon, by the way, the fancy term, sneaky fuckers is one term. Even the fancier term is called kleptogamy, is stealing mating opportunities, right? So I pretend that I am something to then get access to the girls. So then that's when I had my light bulb. This phenomenon had been documented in the zoology literature back in the 1970s. My unique contribution was to argue that male feminists, the super sensitive woke feminists, are actually engaging in kleptogamy, right?
Yeah.
Look how empathetic I am. Look how gentle I am. I hug the trees. I really care about the refugees. Now, maybe you could give me a shot at having sex with you. And so there is real power, if you want to understand human behavior, to look at all of our animal cousins, because that then says a lot about why we do the things that we do. So, okay, so that's one. Number two, about your biology denial, my whole career, my scientific career, has been defined by the fact that most of my breathtakingly imbecilic colleagues reject the idea that biology matters in explaining human behavior in general and consumer behavior in particular. So most social scientists, it may or may not surprise you, actually, till today, if your children go to college, they will learn that what makes humans different from all other animals is that we transcend our biology. We are a cultural animal. So evolution matters for the mosquito. Evolution matters for the dog and the zebra. But come on, Professor, surely you don't mean that evolution matters for consumer behavior. Surely you don't mean that consumers are animals. Well, that's exactly what I mean, idiot.
Yeah.
You think that somehow when we put on our consumer hats, we exist in a plane where our hormones don't matter, where our biology ceases to matter. But and by the way, that's how I originally realized that there was a problem in academia. So what eventually led me 25, 30 years down my academic career to write The Parasitic Mind was that I saw all of these profoundly imbecilic ideas being promulgated on university campuses. And I would kind of look around and say, who believes this bullshit? How could you believe that our hormones don't affect our economic decision making? I mean, I know for a fact that if I'm hungry or not. So if my blood sugar is up or down, it's going to affect the type of decision that I make. And yet economics as a discipline has evolved for 100 years without ever mentioning the word biology in the study of economics. How could that be? You see what I'm saying? So that's how I first became aware that there was a war against reason on university campuses, which now has metamorphosed into every possible arena.
Might make a comment on your previous book, and then I'll get back to the current, because this one won't get you in trouble. So it just relates to it. I don't know if you saw this one, but so like with monkeys, if you notice, the alpha always has the babies around or the teenagers around, and they're picking bugs off of them. They're cleaning them, and I look at that as like they're getting them, like as a human is getting ready in a suit and tie, ready to go to a big event where they want to look good and meet somebody, or going out to a prom, whatever it may be. That's how I really look at it. And then also and this is where I think you got to be out of your mind not to agree with your biology. It's just stupid. So there was a bunch of dogs, and they were trying to get, there was a bunch of dogs and a bunch of monkeys. And one of the dogs had killed one of the mom's babies. And the entire pack of monkeys tricked the dog. They literally hung out with the dog. They jumped the fence, and like the farmer or whatever was like, oh, okay, they're getting along. But they were tricking the dog to thinking it's okay. They knew that the dog's babies were in the shed, whatever it was in. They tricked this fucking dog for 2-3 weeks. I watched the whole thing, read about it. And then after 3 weeks, they got in and they didn't just kill him. They took him and threw the dogs off trees and threw every one of the babies because they killed one of their babies.
Yeah.
And then you take that biology and apply it to now, where if somebody kills a mother's baby, she might not go out and kill him because we have jail here. The monkey, doesn't. But I relate that to your
sentiment
book.
is there.
Yes.
The emotion is there. So I'll make a comment about both. So your first example with the grooming, this is actually called reciprocal grooming in the animal literature, because, and I use it as an example of how reciprocity evolves in the human context, right? So let's say, Tommy, you and I are friends, and you decide to invite me for a fancy dinner for my birthday. The expectation is that when it's your birthday, if we are good friends and I'm a decent guy, when it's your birthday, I will reciprocate and invite you when it's your birthday. Now, from a strict economic perspective, we could bypass this whole ritual, because I'm going to pay $100 for you. You're going to pay $100 for me. We're going to end up at the same place. Let's skip the whole thing. The reason why we don't, gentlemen, is because those bonds, those rituals of reciprocity is what oils our friendship. It's the mechanism by which we're oiling that affection towards each other. And that's why, by the way, if you invite me for my birthday and then I forget to reciprocate, you will take offense to that. You will, your feelings will be hurt. And so reciprocal grooming, by the way, usually it's not one way. So what happens is, you give your back and the other one is picking all the parasites. The expectation is that we then flip it and you do it to me, right? So that's one. The example of the monkey with the dogs, that speaks to the evolution of our emotional system, right? So so I'll come back to the dog monkey story. There is do you know the term Schadenfreude? Do you know what that means?
No.
Schadenfreude is a German word which has entered now the English language. It means to rejoice at the mishap of another. So, for example, I'm driving my shitty car on the highway, and this guy comes whizzing by in a Ferrari, speeding past me and driving recklessly, with some hot girl. So now I'm pissed. Like, what an asshole, this guy. He's endangering everybody's life. 5 miles down the road, I see 2 cop cars that have pulled them over. And now, right? So what do I feel? Yes, asshole.
Yeah.
Well, so that emotional feeling actually has a very clear evolutionary reason for why it evolved. So when you are studying emotions or well, anything involving humans, you have to always ask yourself, why did the mechanism evolve to be of that form? So now I'm going to come back to the dog versus monkey story. Those monkeys have evolved the sentiment of revenge and retribution because it makes evolutionary sense for you to evolve that. Because the most dangerous thing for most animals is usually when someone within your species does you wrong, right? And the only reason they typically don't do something wrong to you is because they know that if you've got a long memory, you will do it back to them, right? So, think about evolutionarily speaking, there are two tribes. I'd really like to get all the hot women of that other tribe so that they can become mine. The only problem is that there's a lot of nasty looking guys in that tribe that would not be very happy if I did that. They would remember it and then they're going to do it to me. And that keeps us, if you'd like, in check. So my point in saying all this is that what evolutionary psychology allows you to do is understand the ultimate explanation for a phenomenon. By ultimate, what we mean by ultimate is the Darwinian why. Why would that monkey have evolved that capacity to manipulate in order to seek revenge? Well, because there are evolutionary reasons why that makes sense.
Professor, I mean, they tricked these dogs for 3 weeks. It's so interesting. I mean, tricked them, went and they, petted them, played with it. They actually threw the bone to them. And next thing you know, all the dogs are going off trees, throwing them off bridges and shit.
But it's interesting because, and I was actually thinking of doing a Saad Truth, like a clip on my show about what I'm about to say, because it speaks to your question. So I'm reading currently a book on Stoicism on Marcus Aurelius, which is something that I talk about the ancient Greeks in my forthcoming book and the Saad Truth about happiness. And so actually the guy who wrote that book is going to be on my show tomorrow. His name is Donald Robertson. Oh, cool. And so the Stoics talk about, never getting insulted when someone defames you, being able to respond properly. And from their vision, there is no reason for you to respond negatively and care about what other people say about you. And I question that advice. So yes, a lot of advice that the Stoics gave was spot on, but some of it I think was simply incorrect, because it makes no sense for me to have evolved such magnanimity that anything that Tommy says, he can go on any show, defame me and lie about me, and I'm just going to go, I'm never going to react. No.
Why don't you go meditate? You can meditate. Meditate.
Exactly. It makes a lot more sense for me to say, hey, Tommy, I'm from the Middle East. If you keep this up, your head's going to be a little mantle, and then that keeps things in check. So I think that the Stoics had a lot of depth and a lot of profundity, but the fact that they suggested certain courses of action that are contrary to evolutionary theory suggests that they may have needed to take a course in evolutionary psychology with Professor Saad.
Now, another question on that. So say you got married and you messed it up and now you're living in regret, going back to the regret thing. How does one get over that? Because now you didn't go through the flags, or you did go through the flags, but you still made a mistake. How do you get over that as a male or female so that you can move on when you're constantly in resent, wishing, so on and so forth? So
I literally answered that exact question in the forthcoming book. So I'll give you a little bit of a hint or a teaser. If you wish to get in the good graces of someone that you've wronged, whether it be in the specific example that you gave, which is you cheated on your spouse, or whether it be you lied to a friend, or whether you wronged a child, you have to be incredibly humble in your contriteness, and your apology has to be costly. What do I mean by that? Let's suppose, so in biology, there is a concept of costly signaling. So please bear with me. It's really powerful. So for example, why has the peacock's tail evolved to be so big, so vivid and coloring, when
Yeah, I
it
like that.
actually reduces the likelihood of him surviving, because it makes him more conspicuous to predators. It makes it more difficult for him to evade predators by having a big tail. Well, the reason why that tail evolves is precisely because it is a costly signal. What does that mean? It is basically saying, hey, girls, despite the fact that I've got this big tail that reduces my survivability, the fact that I'm standing here and ruffling this big tail and I haven't died yet is proof that I'm really top genetic material. This is an honest signal of how good I am, so mate with me. So in other words, for a signal to be valuable, it has to be costly. Otherwise, it's useless. So let's put it in a human context before I come back to your question. There are many rites of passage across many different cultures where when men enter adulthood and they want to become warriors, they have to do this incredibly costly act of bravery. Otherwise, they have no chance of ever getting a girl in that tribe. If all it took is for me to do 10 sit-ups or 10 push-ups and then I get the girls, then every single male could match that signal, and then we would never know the pretenders from the real. But if you have to tie my ankles with vine ropes and jump off an 80-foot platform, as happens in the island of Vanuatu, where my head is about to splatter on the ground head first, that's an honest signal, because it is truly differentiating the bullshit cowards from the really courageous guys who are going to protect me if I have sex with you, right? Now, let's link it back to what you said. If you cheated on your wife and you expect that maybe a dinner and a bottle of wine and I am really sorry, I love you is going to do it, it's not going to do it. You have to do whatever it takes, for however long it takes, however costly the signal is, however amount of time you're going to be, humiliated by her, to get back into her good graces. And I actually quote a passage from a movie where they were intimating exactly that, where the guy had cheated on his wife-to-be and now was trying to apologize. And her father says to the guy who cheated, well, you keep doing it and keep doing it for as long as it takes, and hopefully her defenses fall. So to summarize everything I said, the love is humble. So if you're too prideful so that you say, well, I apologized 3 times and she never accepted, so F her, then that means it's not going to work. But if you're willing to self-flagellate for however long it takes to get back into her good graces, then that's what you have to do.
No matter how long it takes. No matter how long it takes, right?
No matter how long it takes. This book better get me a house in Southern California, because the amount of wisdom that I'm spitting in that book, it should not be $29. It should be like $290.
I agree with you. Pull up tab 2, where he looks, where I want to know what he eats, takes, and he's going to get in trouble with his wife for. The next tab.
Next time.
Now, these are some of your reviews. You even got Megan Kelly, and she is not easy to get a review from there, pal. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. So I got Megan Kelly. You got Jordan Peterson. Who else you got here? You got
Jordan Peterson, Drew Pinsky. Yeah.
You've got Aaron Kiriarty, who's a psychiatrist from UC Irvine. Who else do I have? I've got a whole bunch here. Oh, I've got a historian who wrote a book on happiness, a history. In other words, he does a historical analysis of the concept of happiness spanning many cultures and many thousands of years. Who else? I've got a whole bunch. I think I got 7 or 8 really top people. But yeah, you pointed to some of the more famous ones: Pinsky, Peterson, and Kelly. Absolutely.
Yeah, everybody knows Peter, but Kelly, she's tough. She's tough. So for her,
I gotta tell
you,
Megan Kelly. Maybe I'll get into trouble for this. If one were to get a hall pass, as they say, Megan Kelly is the ultimate woman. You know why? Because number one, I mean, she's a honey badger. She takes right, but she's not a honey badger while sacrificing her femininity, right? Which basically proves that you could be a very tough alpha female, and yet still, breathtakingly beautiful and feminine. So
Beautiful.
she's got it all. Megyn Kelly is the full package.
That's why I pulled that up because even whether you like her, don't like her, everyone knows she's an alpha female.
Speaking of hall passes, though, my hall pass would be Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer
Aniston's my hall pass.
No, you know what? I'm going to have to very respectfully but staunchly disagree with that hall pass.
No,
choice.
you don't like that one. I don't know. It's something about
I don't know if you know this, but I say it in a joking, humorous way, but I actually mean it. I say that I turn into a catatonic state if I see two television shows come on my TV.
Friends.
And Big Bang Theory. Those two shows are crimes against human dignity. So to the extent that Jennifer Aniston is in some way obviously associated with Friends, I don't see her as a sexual being. I see her as a stroke waiting to happen if I watched that show.
I think my hall pass before she got with Pete or whoever she's with now. Is her name Megan Fox? She was in.
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox. I might take in her prime.
She's the one with the blue eyes.
Yeah, the blue killer eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, she's nice. Maybe a bit, if I may offer, maybe a bit plastic.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what I mean in her prime before she got a little bit too, maybe like a decade ago. Not right now where she's real prostic, we'll say, to be nice. You know?
Exactly.
So Megan says about the book, no one is better at helping us laugh, like you said. You know, that's just so great. At the madness of today's modern world, which we all know is a mess, than my dear friend, podcaster, and therapist to us all, Dr. Gad Saad. His new book, The Sad Truth About Happiness, reveals the secrets behind the optimistic approach to life and shows us how we can be happier to people. And for her to say that, I will say it 5 more times.
Yeah.
I don't think you could pay her off, Doc.
Yeah. No, there was no exchange of money. I just made the request, and she was very gracious. She said she'd love to do it, she did it on time. She's just lovely. And by the way, that's the magic of life, right? Which is these new connections that we make. I mean, look, if we didn't have this medium, maybe myself and you guys would have never met. No. If I weren't a professor who wanted to get out of the stay in your lane attitude, if I only did my scientific work, only talked to other professors in the ivory tower, I would have never had the pleasure of getting to know Megyn Kelly and tons of other people that I've gotten to know that otherwise our worlds would have never intersected. So that's actually something else that I talk in the book. I have a whole chapter on, so the chapter is titled Life as a Playground, right? Oh. Meaning, live your life as though you're consistently at play, right? You see it in the conversation we're having today, if I can speak of myself, right? I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm happy to talk. There's no pretense, there's no arrogance. It's just fun. Right? You're getting people to hopefully enjoy the ideas that are floating around in your brain. What could be more exciting and fun? Even when I do scientific research, which, is obviously a serious endeavor, for me, it's a form of intellectual play, right? I mean, what is science other than just solving a puzzle, right? So we can go and buy at the dollar store a puzzle, right? When you make the puzzles with 1,000 pieces.
I hate puzzles.
I love puzzles.
I hate puzzles. Oh. But I do like looking on our microscope. Believe it or not, I do like looking on our microscope and seeing how cells mutate and spike proteins. Pull that back up because I want to know who dressed you. Who dressed you? Who picked the font? Because whoever did that, look at this guy. This guy has this. No, I'm not being. I'm being honest. I mean,
you're very sweet. You want to.
Got the blue shirt. Look at you, buddy, with the blue text.
Here's
with the blue
ready
eyes.
For this? You ready for this?
Yeah.
I'm giving you now backdoor information.
Who's the connection? Who's the connection?
So that photo. That photo shoot happened as I was coming out on the tail end of the worst gastrovirus for over a week. Oh, so about two hours before I went for this photo shoot that you so kindly complimented, I called the photographer and I said, I don't think I can make it. He said, well, what do you mean you can't make it? We've got the studio, we've got the makeup person, we got the photographers, we've got everybody. I said, okay, well, does your studio have a bathroom if I need it? He says, yes, we're covered. So luckily I didn't have to go to the bathroom because, as I said, I was on the tail end of it. But just to say that I'm pretty happy that it came out the way that I did, given the week that had transpired before that photo was taken.
I'm telling you, Doc, you're going to get in trouble on this one. When this is on the bookshelves and Barnes and Nobles, oh boy, you're going to be in trouble. You better have some flowers ready when you're peeling them off you. You know, we just talked about the Ferrari.
You know what, my wife, I don't know if you've ever seen me do this on social media. Whenever my wife gives me some sort of food that is kind of a fattening food, I always call it her mate guarding strategy.
Yeah.
If I start looking as though I'm too cut up and too svelte, here come the cannolis.
Oh, here come the cannolis. Here comes the she's gonna be cooking gravy for you where you could smell it a mile away, or you know, I forget what down Lebanese. It's kind of the same stuff, but oh boy, you're gonna have extra salt on everything.
But is that even though we're joking about it, is that kind of true that
Sure.
you know, if a male, maybe the opposite way too, but I think more on the male side, if a male's looking too good, that the wife will be like, I can't have him looking this good. Is there some truth to that though?
Oh, of course, right? We both men and women use all sorts of territorial strategies to protect what's theirs. So, of course, there's tons of literature on that. Now, I'm not sure whether when she cooks an amazing fatty meal, she's literally saying, let me fatten up the pretty boy so that other girls don't look at him. But maybe subconsciously she is. I don't know. I mean, I say it somewhat jokingly, but certainly the instinct to try to find strategies to make your partner a bit uglier is, isn't that why men usually get jealous when their wives go out in a super revealing dress and you say, really, you're going out with that? I mean, that's exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah, I say you're going. I probably shouldn't say this, but well, who cares? I say sometimes I would say, you know, you're dressed like girls I used to have on rotation. You're walking out on my rotation list. You know, you look exactly. Well, this is the top selling shirt. Okay, well, top selling shirt to the hookers, baby. You know. You know.
How long have you been married, Tommy?
The first time 17 years, and I've been engaged 4 on this one.
Okay. And so the story that you just said is with this one or the other one?
With this one that's hooked on this generation with this crazy social media and then fucking TikTok and
I might soften my language if I could offer some unsolicited feedback.
Sorry. Go ahead, yeah.
No, not with me.
Yeah.
I don't mean with me. I mean with the spouse to be. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. What's the feedback?
No, the feedback is I might soften some of the.
Soften. Yeah. Well, here we go with that. Like we were talking about earlier, the authenticness. And I don't.
That's true.
Because I don't mean it like you're a whore. I just mean it like, have you looked in the mirror? But these days they don't look at they just think it's okay. Can you pull up tab 4? Yeah. And I want to ask you again about your book, but I want to hit some things so you don't get killed. Sure. You know, and this next one.
Hold on, I gotta move this.
Yeah. So this is your website. Everything's here.
Oh, this is Fat Gad photo.
This is your website.
No, that's fine. That's the one. I just have to remember to change the photo. So this is.
This is Fat Guy. Oh, I see.
This is probably. I'm gonna go 215, 225 in this photo.
Wow. Well, even more to your point.
There you go.
And everything's there, right? Your YouTube, your podcast.
Yeah. So this is my website exactly. So if you want to follow me, if you want to subscribe to my podcast, to my YouTube channel, whatever it is, go to this one-stop shop website and you've got it all.
Got it all there. The Twitter, the Spotify, everything. Instagram, LinkedIn.
Everything.
And we'll have all that in the description, of course. Anything I could do to help you. Anything.
Thank you so much.
You're really...
So much fun.
Yeah,
and,
this is fun.
Yeah.
As I said, consider yourself envied. Palm Beach, I'm not a Florida guy. I'm very much a Southern California guy. I lived in Southern California. I was a professor at University of California, Irvine for a while. My brother, the one with the Ferraris, has been in California since '84, so it's like a second home to me. But recently, we started, going to Florida more often. So it's only recently that I discovered Palm Beach. I've been there a couple of times. You know what? It's calling me. I'm still not willing to say it's as beautiful as Newport Beach.
Wheelman. I know Newport Beach. I used to have season tickets at the Lakers, and I would go try to see Kobe because Kobe lived in Newport Beach.
That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, where he lived, which is in Newport Coast, was very close to where we used to live. And so it's very, very hard to compare, the weather and the topography, the mountains of Southern California. I think just in terms of its nature, it's more beautiful. But I'm coming around. I'm starting to love Florida. So maybe, God willing,
when you fly in, I'll take you for a trip around Palm Beach Island.
Yep.
That's your spot. It's called Palm Beach Island. Like the studio's here, maybe, a mile and a half down? Yeah. Now, this is a funny story, quick, just to laugh off the subject. Pacino's got a house down the street. Sylvester Stallone. Now, the lawn care has to, because you're in Palm Beach Island, so, the lawn care's got to be $20K a month, and no one's ever there. And these are mansions. I mean, the whole road is mansions. Best places to eat. You can just walk around with your wife and look at the water and the ocean. The only thing I will give you is you don't have the cool mountains and everything else.
But you're forgetting one thing.
What?
The taxes.
How about the taxes?
What you don't want.
Yeah.
That's why.
There you go, buddy. After this book,
there, the taxes.
You better move before July 25th.
Yeah.
100%. And by the way, the taxes on this one destroyed me. I mean, I always say that the taxes that I paid on this book might have been more traumatizing than going through the Lebanese civil war that I went through. I'm almost being literal. That's how soul-crushing it was.
I know. Now, you got to get down to Palm Beach Island. That will soak you in. I'm telling you, right? Because you can walk on the dock, and it's just there, and it's just different. It's not like Boca and West Palm and Fort Lauderdale. Like, you couldn't pay me to live in Fort Lauderdale. You couldn't pay for my house for me to live there. Me personally, it's
cheesy.
It's cheesy. Miami, in and out. I do not want to live. I would go back to Philly if I wanted to do that. Speaking of which, that you noted in your coming book. So where I'm from in Philadelphia, and also him as well, if I go back, I haven't been there in 10 years. And my mother, who's Italian, and I know you can relate to this, she always thought, I'm not coming to Florida. It's too hot. It's too hot. It's too hot. And she was one of those ones that they're in their neighborhood with all their Italian people, and they're not leaving. No matter what, they're not leaving. That's their area. So if I were to go back, and I haven't been back in 10 years, but when I was back before, the same people are doing the same thing, and they hate it. And they get, 2 weeks vacation, and that 2 weeks, they're either just drinking the whole 2 weeks, or they're miserable from the other 54 weeks that they worked. And you note this in your book, and then this goes back again to people telling them, oh, well, you should stay at this career because it's stable. But that's not really what they want to do. Then they're 80 and they're they're painting. Maybe they're a great painter. Maybe whatever. Now, and that's one of your keys in the book with the happiness, whereas, and I'm just putting it into my words, whereas who cares what somebody says? You do what you want, what's in your heart. Now, like you said, if the engineering firm was just failing after 5 years, I'm not going to keep dumping money into it. Okay, it was fun. It didn't work, but it did work. But people would look at me and be like, you're going to do an engineering firm? The reason doesn't matter why. But I said, yeah, I'm going to, so on and so forth. So when you have someone like that, and whether they want to admit, let's just say they're listening to us right now, and they hate their fucking job. They fucking hate it. They don't want to be driving a forklift or whatever else they do up there. They maybe they like to play the guitar. Maybe they like to do whatever. How do you break them out of that when all that influence is on them? all this, all that. This is, and I go back to this is how things are supposed to be or should be. And then really you're wiping a male or female's dream away, and they stick living this nightmare job. And as you say in the little snippets that we got from your book that you're holding till July 25th, it's like extortion almost.
Yeah.
You know,
He gave me some
give them a
crack.
racketeering charge, and maybe we'll get out quicker. But you know, having that said, you know, if somebody's watching and you know they've been so brainwashed that no, this is a great job, but subconsciously they know that they hate what they're doing, and that their true passion is to play the guitar or go dance or whatever it may be. What advice or what one or two liners would you throw at them to just maybe get them out of that? Now remember, they got the wife on them, they got this on them, and they'll get killed if they come home and say, "Hey, I quit my job, I'm gonna go make chairs." But maybe they can make the best chair ever.
So I don't know if I can answer in one or two sentences, but I can answer.
I was kidding.
Two quick related stories.
Take your time.
Story one. So this was probably 1996. It might have been my second or third year as a professor. I joined my university in 1994 as a young professor. In the newspaper, the university's newspaper, it's called the Thursday Report. There was an article, and it was written something like "Finally a doctor at 91 or 92." And what that story tells is the following story.
It's interesting.
It's basically the story of a guy who escaped Germany, Jewish guy, during the rise, you know, as the Nazis were slowly coming in. He had always been very interested in pursuing his educational career, but life circumstances didn't allow him to do that. He became a businessman. So he's the Italian guys in the neighborhood that you're talking about. Life took over. He had to do things. And then in his 60s, he was lucky enough that he could retire. And he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm still of sound mind and sound body. Why don't I just go and sign up for some evening classes, whatever, this is bachelor's degree." So he's in his 60s. He's taking classes with 20-year-olds. So then he gets his bachelor's degree. Now he's in his 70s. He says, "You know what? I'm still feeling good. Why don't I go on and get my master's degree?" Gets his master's degree. Now he's in his 80s, pursues his PhD, graduates with his doctorate at 91 or 92, and within a year of getting his PhD, he passes away. Now, did that guy not have the same constraints that all the people that you're talking about have? Now, I don't mean some objectives are completely insane. I can't today say I want to be a starring ballerina, you know, at the Met Opera because I'm too old, I'm not flexible enough, I don't have enough talent, my back hurts. But there are many obstacles that we create in our head that it's only we are putting it there, right? I mean, what could be more impossible as an apparent dream than when you're in your 60s, you don't have any university education, and then by your 90s, you get your PhD. So that's number one. Story number two, very related. I had this guy on my show about a year ago. His name is Manfred Steiner. He's a guy who went to medical school and graduated in the 1950s because his parents had said, "Come on, don't study impractical stuff, get a real profession, become a physician." So he became a physician. His love had always been physics. So he becomes a physician. Then he specializes, becomes a hematologist, a blood doctor. On the way in the 60s of getting his specialization, his medical degree, he picks up a PhD in biochemistry, has an entire career in medicine. And then after he retires, now he's in his 70s, he says, "I want to pursue my original goal, which was to become a physicist." Now he's already an MD, a medical doctor, and a PhD, and he's not retired. He goes and starts taking undergraduate courses in physics at MIT. And then 2 falls ago, he graduated with his PhD in physics at Brown University at the age of 89. Okay. So the bottom line is, don't go after impossible bullshit dreams that there's no way for you to materialize. but there are countless dreams that you are currently having in the deep recesses of your mind that the only reason why you're not doing them is because you've laid that obstacle, right? You don't have to get a PhD. You said you want to learn guitar classes. Well, why don't you, instead of drinking beer, just go to your local community college and sign up for some guitar classes? The amount of happiness that will, by the way, there is research that shows that just doing these kinds of things that give you purpose and meaning, and I don't mean purpose and meaning you're going to cure cancer or solve diabetes, but these little things that truly give you a sense of existential authenticity can make you less depressed, can make you less anxious, can give you a more optimistic look on life. So get rid of those obstacles, go out and do it. It's never, ever too late.
But you speak of this, and this is one of the pointers, in the pre-thing. What about the people around you? How do you block out that noise when you want to go play the guitar? Or how about this? This is a logical one. Say somebody's driving a forklift. Wife is happy because he's making his $40,000 a year with retirement and benefits, but he wants to be a mechanic. That's his dream, is to be a mechanic. But if he goes to be a mechanic, his wife is going to kill his ass, and
right.
she won't stop the complaining and everything. So it's not always that the person doesn't want to do it or doesn't want to feel the dream. He doesn't want to have to deal with the noise. What do you do then?
Well, okay, so of course, each case is different. So, of course, notwithstanding that you might have financial constraints and so on. Okay, so you can't become a mechanic and leave your union job that pays you well and gives you medical benefits. How about you go to a mechanic, adult training class every Friday at your local high school? In other words, there are ways by which we can instantiate some of our most fundamental interests without necessarily doing a cataclysmic change. I mean, I understand that for many people, they're locked into their lives, right? Like, I am a welder and I've got bills to pay, and it's not practical for me to suddenly become an artist, right? I get that. But how about you take an art class? How about you go to the local wine and art seminar? That will make you live a more authentic life, right? Inauthenticity is when my inner voice is not jiving with my outer reality. Well, close that gap. You can close it by doing something as drastic as quitting your welder job, but you don't have to do that. Just sign up to the local community college, take an art history course, and suddenly you'll feel satisfied. You won't be as angry. You won't be as depressed. Maybe your wife will even be happier because now it looks like you're not getting fatter on the couch. Yeah. Everybody wins.
That's a great. I was hoping you would answer that way, because that's a way where they don't have to deal with the complaining, still do their dream, and maybe they become very good at the welding, and they can come home and say, "Hey, honey, I've got my degree. I have these 3 or 4 places that are willing to hire me without you cutting my nuts off. I'm going to put in my 2 weeks and go take this job and fulfill the happiness." And that would be a way that one could fulfill their inner self without getting killed at home. And that would be one of the steps to happiness, right?
Exactly right. Just live an authentic life. You don't have to bring down the entire edifice to do it. Just do little things, and hopefully your inner voice matches with the outer reality. And as I said, everybody wins. Be authentic.
And then a tip without your publisher's killing you. Now this is a big one. How do you keep the spice? Nope. After the honeymoon phase is over, right? You want to jump in on this one? And you've got, how do you keep that spice? And I heard you not just on Rogan, I heard you on your own podcast. This guy says he says I lose this 87 pounds and I'm wearing her out, or something like that.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think I might have said something like, and now, our lovemaking sessions used to be 2 hours long, and now they're up to 5 hours long after losing 86 pounds. I think it was something like that.
Something like that. But I heard it on your podcast too. I was like, oh yeah, he's feeling good. He's feeling good.
I think, look, it's of course spontaneity, right? So one of the ways by which we can maintain that desire for variety is, but we don't want to stray outside of our monogamous union, is to incorporate variety, right? Like, in other words, if what you do is we're gonna pencil it in every Saturday when the kids go out from 9 to 9:40, and we're gonna do the things that we do using steps A, B, C, D, then that makes it easier for it to be monotonous. But if we do it whereby it's an afternoon where nobody is expecting it, let's put on the Barry White, let's bring out the fireman suit, call me Rocco, and let's get it on. Well, sure, I'm not a different guy, but at least I've played the role for a moment. I've introduced variety. I've introduced spontaneity. So I think there's all kinds of ways. Now, but by the way, that doesn't mean that we should expect to have the same butterflies 25 years into a marriage as we did the first 3 times we had sex. That would be so when you see the books that promise you that, don't buy them, because they're lying to you. That's never going to happen. But what we can do is we can delay that. But if we never put in the work, if we're never creative, if we're never spontaneous, if we're never playful, part of sex is playfulness, right? It's being fun, it's being irreverent, it's trying new things. And I don't think that has an expiration date. We can do it when we're 2 months into our relationship. We could do it when we're 20 years into our relationship. I had a guy on my show who's a very serious, austere guy. His name is Charles Murray. I don't know if you know him. He's a political scientist who has written several, quite controversial books. I mean, they're not controversial to me, but they're controversial. For example, he talks about racial differences in accomplishment and so on. So you're not supposed to talk about that and so on. And when he came on my show, I used this quote in the forthcoming book. He said something to the effect of, the secret to finding the right spouse is to marry your best friend who you happen to be sexually attracted to. Yeah. And I use that quote because that's exactly right? I prefer to be with my wife on a day-to-day basis more than with anybody else. In other words, I don't have guys, not that I don't go out with guy friends, but I don't have to institute a guy's night out. She doesn't have to institute a girl's night out because we need a break from each other, because I genuinely enjoy her company. I can act like a buffoon with her. I can joke around. I can be serious. And I also have the benefit of finding her very beautiful and desirable. So if you can find someone that you're sexually attracted to who's your best friend, you found the secret to a happy marriage.
Gold mine. And then you also speak of how important marriage is. And I don't know how it is over there, but here,
there's no such.
This is what they do over here, okay?
Over here means Florida?
Like in the United States. Yeah, because you're in Canada, right?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So here what they do, and this is sick. And they really do it to the black community, which is even sicker. And I had Jesse Peterson on, and he went off about this. And what they do is they give women an incentive to get divorced and or leave the baby dad. And they do it to not just African Americans. They do it to white people too, but more so they target the African Americans, voters and all that other bullshit. So nowadays, when you talk about how important marriage is and so on and so forth, now the government is giving them incentive. For an example, prime example, just happened like last week. My fiance, she doesn't need benefits, but whatever. If they're going to give them to her, I'll take them, right? So they run out or whatever, and I say, don't worry about it. Just let it go. Let it go. I don't know if your wife is like this, but she's Lebanese and doesn't let anything go. And on the phone forever, like fighting with these people, cursing them out. I mean, Jesus, 4 days to this. And I'm saying, just let it go. Anyway, that's one of your courses I need to take. I need your therapy. So, and what they said to her was, well, if you take Tommy for child support, okay, we'll give you your full benefits, this, that, the other. And it's this whole thing. And they give the initiative to break up the family. And then here, I mean, the guy's got no shot. If the woman's a full-blown heroin addict and, I don't know, has 37 million charges, and the guy walks in and has a DUI, he's got no shot. The woman's getting it. And she's getting paid. And if you're married, they're going to get alimony if you didn't sign a prenup because of what is the thing that they use here? Like they're used to a certain, so say like a guy like you were here and you didn't need a prenup, you know, you love your wife, whatever. Your wife, that doesn't work, and she's accustomed to lifestyle A, B, C, D, E. You go into court here, and the alimony is based on that accustomed lifestyle that you provided for her because she didn't work. So it gives them this incentive to leave the man, break up the family, which is what we're seeing in mental health. I don't care what they want to blame it on. It starts with the family, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, what you just said about Jesse Peterson, whom I've gotten to know. I've appeared on his show. He's a lovely guy.
He's a good guy. He's a funny guy.
He's a funny guy. Larry Elder has argued for the same thing for many, many years, and even more lofty than Larry Elder, although Larry Elder is fantastic. Thomas Sowell, the famous Black economist, has railed against the father absence in the Black family for many decades now. So rather than, you know, putting the blame for some of the problems in the inner city on, you know, systemic racism, the boogeyman that doesn't exist, how about you fix the families, and then many of these problems will go away. By the way, from an evolutionary perspective, father absence not only explains things that you would think it would explain, you know, the likelihood of you becoming a criminal, when do you quit school, future trajectory of success is all negatively predicted by if the father's not there. But it turns out, gentlemen, this might blow your mind, that the onset of a girl's first menstrual cycle, the fancy term is menarche. So the first time, the timing of when a girl has her menses is highly correlated to whether there is a presence of a father or absence of a father in a home. And so here's how the mechanism works. If there is no father in the home, the young girl goes into her reproductive window earlier. In other words, if the average age at which girls get their menstrual cycle is 12, if the father is there, it's 10 if the father is not there. So not only does it have great repercussion on, let's say, young men's future trajectories, it has a literal physiological, you know, effect on when your daughter will get her first menstrual cycle. And again, this goes back to something we talked about earlier, which is human beings are a biparental species. Both men and women are needed in the home for the full flourishing of a child, and anybody who thinks otherwise is an imbecile.
We talk about that. I mean, I brought that up a million times on here, right? I keep saying, like, a kid needs a father and a mother, and they serve two different purposes, because a father's going to be the one, hopefully, that's like, you know, wait till your dad gets home, right? That's the famous saying, wait till your father gets home. That's that thing. And then the mom's there to console and, you know, give the kisses. But I think a lot of the problems we have in society now is there's the broken family system. A kid has no one, a father figure if it's a boy to look up to, or maybe for the girl, a mother, and it just messes up the whole cycle.
Indeed, absolutely.
And another thing, and don't say too much, but, you know, if the stats are correct, okay, and between me and you, Professor, there's 5 million people that are going to watch or listen to this. If the stats are correct, there's a lot of people with depression and anxiety. I see all these people, and you know, I'm no doctor, but I do study this stuff heavy. I go down to my friends and look at all kinds of crazy stuff that, you know, looking at me, you would never think I would do, but I'm very interested in stuff, molecule, you know, the cancer. So I'm just very, very into that for some reason. I'm into space.
But you wouldn't have built a successful show if you weren't intellectually curious, right?
Right.
Otherwise, the show would have never worked. So I can completely understand how that would be.
Thank you for that compliment. I appreciate, especially from you. I appreciate it. So you just complimented. Now you threw me off. What was I saying?
Just about
you were talking about depression and anxiety.
Yeah, everybody has it.
But I was just very thankful for that compliment from him.
Of course.
No, really, really. So when you and they give these SRIs, And I'm sure you've studied them. I've studied them with my peanut brain. And these SRIs, compared to, say, a Klonopin, to me, personally, if somebody has anxiety, these SRIs, I've seen these things turn people into completely different people. I've seen them gain weight, miserable, moody, and then trying to coming off of them because of the dopamine and serotonin levels that it messes with is a disaster. Then they have anxiety. Now, you can't be happy if you have anxiety. That's a nightmare. So what do you say to those who are on the SRIs or on this medication that really might be making it worse? And we all know about Big Pharma. In my opinion, Big Pharma is all about take this pill so you end up taking this pill so you take this pill. And then you have a lot of people with anxiety that don't want to admit it that they have it. They want to say, well, that's just me. I've been like this all my life. But meanwhile, they're a ball of nerves.
Yeah. So, no, I get it. Okay. Yeah. So I would answer this in a couple of ways. Number one, I just had a physician, a cardiologist on my show. His name is Asim Malhotra. And he'll be happy that I'm plugging his thing on your show. He's got a new documentary coming out called First Do No Farm. It's based on a play on First Do No Harm, right? The Hippocratic, but he changes the word harm to farm, PHARM, meaning pharma.
Oh, I know who he is. Yeah.
Right. So precisely to your point, he's basically arguing that the medical system over-medicalizes people. Now, to your specific point about, mental health issues, it really, for many things, it really is a combination both of, lifestyle changes, talk therapy, going to actually see a therapist, and in some cases, pharmacological interventions, meaning actually taking a pill. I think the problem in psychiatry is it has recently gone too far. The pendulum has too much swung to just pharmacological interventions rather than getting at the underlying root of, why is it that you're feeling anxiety? So, for example, we know that of all therapeutic approaches in terms of talk therapies, one that really works well, just as well, if not better than many of the drugs, is cognitive behavior therapy, which, by the way, the Stoics several thousand years ago had already, some of their philosophy is very much the precursor of cognitive behavior therapy. Now, what's cognitive behavior therapy? It's basically the idea that what's causing you a particular source of anxiety is that you're holding the wrong cognitions about that thing. And therefore, that's leading you down bad behavioral pathways. If I can get you to shift your cognition about this thing, then hopefully the anxiety symptoms will alleviate themselves. So what CBT does, cognitive behavior therapy does, is it refocuses your thinking to be more in line with reality. And that's exactly what the Stoics had said thousands of years ago. So, but that said, there are some mental health issues. If you're, for example, paranoid schizophrenic, that's a real that's organic
ball game. Yeah.
Exactly. That's an organic disease. We absolutely know the biological mechanism that results in that. Here is a pill. If you take it religiously, I can assure you that your symptoms will completely disappear. No more hallucinations, no more voices in your head. So for a few mental health issues, a complete pharmacological approach makes sense. But for most other things, I completely agree with you. Simply going down, take this pill and nothing else is not going to result in long-term cure for your symptoms. This is why, by the way, one of the best predictor of your therapist being effective with you is not whether he or she has degrees from Cornell and Harvard. It's not how many PhDs. It's if they are empathetic. Because what that basically shows you is that there is a human element in the connection, in the talk therapy, that is as valuable, if in many cases more so, than just popping a pill. So in most things in life, like we were talking about earlier about the inverted U, the optimal path is a combination of things. So for a few things, only pills will work. For a few things, only talk therapy is necessary. For most mental health issues, you need a bit of both.
Yeah, that's schizophrenia. Serious. I know a guy in California that when they were on the lockdown, he didn't tell anybody that he had schizophrenia. He couldn't get to his therapist, jumped off his balcony.
Exactly.
You know, so I'm not talking about that. I mean where you're sitting there and then all of a sudden you have the anxiety and so on and so forth. I had it for a while because of things, you know, shit. We would be here for 3 hours if I got some stories for you, pal. I'll take one of your classes. I'll make you laugh for a decade. So I go in, my parents, I'll go to a therapist, and as soon as they said to me, "Hey, Tommy, how's your day? Here's your walk right out." And for some reason, I went to this one therapist, the last one. I said, "Mom, I don't care. I'm not going," because I had anxiety. I was getting in little bits of trouble when I was younger. You know, I was in South Philly, shit. You know, that's what happens when you're Italian and you're in South Philly. I walk into this guy, and the first thing he says to me, and excuse my language, he goes, "What the fuck are you doing with that big gold chain on?" And I said, right. "You're my guy." Because he didn't ask me how my day was. Yep. How's your day? You know, do you like the sun? That wasn't for me. And for probably 2 months, never talked about anything but business. How are you going to go into a business? Because I had something going on. How are you going to go into a business with those dumb diamond earrings on? You're not going to get respect. You want to wear your diamond earrings, that's fine. But in business, you can't do that. But what he was able to do was read how I am. And he knew if he approached me with the happy doodle stuff, it wasn't going to work. So for literally 2 months, nothing. And the girl I was with at the time, and I think you'll appreciate this, he was sick of dealing with insurance companies. So when he would write a prescription, you know, a real one, someone who needed one, some brand names are different than generics. They're not the same. You know, the purity isn't the same. So certain ones, he would have patients that really needed the brand name. Well, the insurances would give him hell all the time. And he got sick and tired of it. And he said, "You know what? Cash only. If I lose everybody, I'm not dealing with them. This isn't helping he went cash only and ended up making more money." Okay. So, you know, I just want to say, because it took balls to do that. So after 2 months, then he started getting into things slowly, but always talking about business, you know, what I'm doing, how I'm moving. And I didn't realize it at the time, but there might have been one sentence in that hour that he would say that sometime down the road, I'd hear this prick in my head say it, and I'd be like, "Oh, that was him." You know, and I wouldn't, and I didn't have anxiety. I was making better decisions and so on and so forth. The point being is it worked for me, and I was the lunatic. When I was younger, I was nuts, you know. But he was able to read me. But nowadays, it's so hard to find someone like that. Now, do you offer courses online?
So one of the things that I'm hoping to do is to create, I mean, it's hard to at some point not, you know, I'm very much of a purist at heart, so I just want to help people, but you can't always do things for free, right? And so
I don't mean
give
free,
all my No, I know.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've been thinking about is setting up behind, you know, a subscription wall, exactly what you just asked about, whether it be now there's this opportunity on Twitter Spaces to do it. Locals, I don't know if you know Locals.
Be careful with Twitter.
Yeah, I know. Locals has been trying to get me to sign up with them for several years. So it's definitely on my radar. So I appreciate that question. I think that there is a great potential to be able to help a lot of people by offering these courses. I am planning on coming down to Florida, speaking of courses, to actually take a course under the Jordan Peterson Academy. His people have asked me to put together an 8-hour course that would then be hosted on his platform. But it's definitely on my mind. And to your more general question, I'm kind of right now at a fork in my career, in that on the one hand, I've never imagined that I could ever not be in academia. To be a professor is in my DNA, and I've always loved being an academic. I've always loved to do the scientific research and so on. But the last 10, 12, 15 years have allowed me to expand my reach to such a level that a lot of the things that unfortunately I do in academia are hindering my ability to pursue some of these other opportunities, like what you just asked, offering these independent courses. Because as a professor, it's a very, very full-time job. I'm applying for grants. I'm supervising doctoral students. I'm teaching courses. I'm writing academic papers. I'm serving on editorial boards. I'm sitting on a million administrative committees. So if I did nothing but my professorship stuff, I would be busy all day. And so the reason why I'm saying all this is because right now I'm at a point where I have to start thinking, so what's my next move the next 5, 10, 20 years? Am I going to stay in academia, or am I going to take the route, let's say, of how Jordan Peterson, he now retired from academia? And so to answer your question in this long-winded way, I think if I were to decide to leave academia, it would make it a lot easier for me to do the things that you asked about, because then it would free up my time. Because I don't do things half-assed. When I do something, I want to do it full throttle. I want to do it perfectly right. I don't want to be winging it. And it's very hard to find the time to do all the things I do. I mean, even now, I wear 7 different hats. I appear on the media 100,000 times. I write books. I do shows for 3 hours. I do this. I do right. So I'm a bit in a pickle, because on the one hand, to your point earlier about the welder who wants to leave his job and pursue his art, I have young children that are still under our care, and it's hard to walk away from a tenured professorship that you've built 30 years. It's taken 30 years to build. It makes you less likely to take risks because your career path is set. I've got security. I've got my system set up. I've got my graduate students. So it takes a lot of guts to say, I'm breaking the golden handcuffs and I'm going to pursue other opportunities. But to the earlier conversation we had about regret, I worry that in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, I'll regret that I never took some of these risks, because there are so many incredible opportunities for me to pursue that today I've rejected all of them because I'm tied to my academic career.
Wow.
So I hope I've answered your question.
Well, Professor, on Fridays, you could do Zoom therapy and see how you like it without it completely getting in your way. Does that sound familiar?
Let's talk. Let's talk. That sounds pretty interesting.
Because right now, what therapist do you go to? Who do you go to? Who can you trust? Especially in the United States. I wouldn't trust any of them, other than the guy that told me I'm a jerk off because of my gold necklace. But now I wouldn't trust any of them. None of them. Not one of them. Not one of them. Because they would have their own agenda, and in my opinion, have their little script. Okay, he looks like this. He talks like this. Okay, blah, 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 blah. But you're a real guy. You have a background. You know what you're talking about. I love how you go back into ancient, because it kind of did shape us. You go into biology. So do it on Fridays, like you said, and see how it goes.
I think I might have to take you up on that. I think that's a very good idea.
And you could still do
Fridays
it at home.
with Dr. Saad.
You better get that sign-up list. And charge and everything, and do.
But you know what? I'll ask you this. Maybe thank you. That's a very good recommendation. What has been your secret, if I may turn to your apparent greater expertise? How have you been able to build a platform as big as yours? Because I find that I'm completely stagnant in terms of some of those metrics. For example, my YouTube channel, despite the fact that I've got millions of people who know me and follow, it's as if it's hit somebody's pushed a button, and I could never get past a certain stage. But then I look, now I know you've got great content, you've got great guests.
Thank you.
But I probably have, 1/5 the average, views that is there something unique that you've done that allowed you to grow your platform the way that you have?
I think, well, one, they're suppressing you for sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then 2, say it's your YouTube that you want to grow, then you should be like I don't know if you're on Reddit. I didn't see Reddit up there.
I'm not. I've never been on Reddit.
Okay.
No.
Reddit is bigger than any of them as far as pointing power. So for 20 years, I've coded. I'm a coder, right? Like code, like behind the shit. So Reddit is the most powerful. And the reason it is because you have to build karma, which means there's no robots, in other words. So if you go on Reddit and you post a link to whichever site you're really pushing to get more popular, that pointing power, let's just say, to make it simple, if you put the YouTube link in, the Spotify link in on Reddit, you're going to get a lot more traction that way. Then you go to like pin interest that people overlook. You know, pin interest with the little red thing. That's huge. That's huge. That carries.
I'm also not there.
Right. So those two just alone, Reddit being the biggest, they carry a lot of weight as far as pointing power. And pointing power means when you click on that and then it takes it to Spotify or YouTube, how that affects the algorithm. And then that affects the algorithm. And then once you get in the algorithm, everything starts to go up. And there's a lot more to that if you'd like me to text you or email you and whatever. But
that might be good.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I'd be more than happy to. And on Fridays, then you got to do Zoom. So then when people ask me for a therapist, because I tell everybody, if you go to a therapist, don't even talk to me. I don't even want to hear about it. You know, don't even want to go there. You know.
Well, you know, I did it wasn't a therapy session, but I did my inaugural, just out of the blue, I did a Twitter Spaces about 2 weeks ago, and I had 3,692 people show up on the spur of the moment. So that just blew my mind, right? I mean, it's not, I hadn't promoted it for 2 weeks. I hadn't done anything. I just literally opened my phone. I put out a tweet. I said, hey, I don't know how this Twitter Spaces works. Can somebody help me? One of my followers came in and said, hey, I will manage the whole thing for you today. We ended up spending 3.5 hours in an open-ended Twitter Spaces with 3,692 people. So there's real opportunity to do big things.
I want to ask you something. I want to get back to Twitter. I want to know what your thinking is on this, because Dr. Malone, 3 times he came in and I fought him on this Elon thing. But first, you stated it, and I'm with you, but I just want you to explain it, that happiness is a fact. And when I went, okay, so how can happiness be a fact when it's a feeling? I look at it, and then correct me or you know, make it better. Well, either you're happy or sad. But then what defines happiness?
Well, that's a big question. 3 hours into our conversation.
You got stamina. You lost 87 pounds. Come on, if you can go 2 hours.
there are different ways by which we measure happiness, and even within the academic literature, there are all kinds of arcane debates distinguishing between different types of happy states, you know, happiness versus well-being versus contentment. So I try to avoid those kinds of, you know, academic arcane debates. Happiness is a feeling of well-being, a feeling of existential joy. You know, you wake up in the morning, you could tell, even if you weren't able to measure it, although we could measure happiness, you know, you get a sense whether you wake up and you say the world is on my shoulders, my life sucks, everything is bleak, or whether you say life is exciting, where can I go play today? And so all that I mean by, you know, happiness is a fact is that, to go back to the earlier point about the 50% genes versus 50% non-genes, yes, there is part of our happiness that is inscribed in our genes, which can't alter it, right? So some of us have sunny dispositions, others don't. But there's another 50% that's up for grabs. In other words, you are the orchestrator, the architect of your happiness. There are concrete steps that you can take that either make you improve on that score or worsen. Just like, by the way, let's go back to weight. On any given day, only one of 3 things can happen. I can either gain weight that day, my weight could not change that day, or I could lose weight that day, correct?
Right.
Now, if each of the next 18 months, the same phenomenon happens, which each and every day for 18 months, I end up on the losing weight scale, guess what? I'll get up on the scale after 18 months and I'll be 86 pounds lighter, right? So it's the same thing for happiness. Imagine that happiness has this internal scale, and every single day, at the end of the day, my happiness meter either went this way, it didn't move, or it went this way. And all I'm saying is, it is within your willful control. There are things that you can do that improve your score. It's not a guaranteed recipe. I'm not promising you a guarantee, but I can sure promise you that if you implement these mindsets, your probability of happiness increases drastically.
Real quick question. How do you take someone who, let's say they're miserable, right? They're not happy. And then they find happiness, what's happy to them from all the miserable, in either eating a shit ton of food or boozing or doing any of that. And that literally is like, my life sucks, but man, this really makes me happy. That's like a false happy, I guess. How do you do that?
The ancient Greeks, talked about that. There are even, Greek terms that when we mean happiness, and certainly when I mean happiness, I'm not talking about the ephemeral, the passing dopamine hit, right? So yes, I can watch a porn movie and be titillated for 3 minutes. That's not what we mean by happiness. I can eat a juicy steak that can give me real sensorial pleasure. That's not what we mean. At least that's not what I mean by happiness in this book. Happiness is it's an existential state of being, right? Like, I wake up on any given day. Of course, I've got a million pressures. Of course, some days I wake up, I go, oh God, I've got these 4 meetings and I've got to file my taxes and life sucks. But generally speaking, when I don't sleep well at night because I'm so excited for the next day to come. And my mind is so racy about all the exciting opportunities that await me the next day. Well, guess what? That's happiness, right? If I were unhappy, I'd say, please, God, let me sleep and may I never wake up, because I want to get the hell out of this life. I'm saying, can you please finish with the sleeping so I can wake up? Because tomorrow I'm speaking at these guys in Palm Beach, and then I've got a meeting with this postdoc, and then I'm going to work on the idea for my next book, and then I'm going to put up my chat with Piers Morgan that I have. So many exciting things. So, that's what it is. It's not the hit of dopamine. It's not the your favorite Philly Eagles winning the Super Bowl. Those are passing things. I'm talking about deep existential things. When you're 85 years old, you're looking back at your life, you say, am I rich because I've lived a life full of brilliant experiences? If yes, you win at the game of life. That's it.
Can you pull up tab 2? So, 2 things. Have you looked into NAD and looked at that biological at all?
No.
Not at all? I was just interested. So in the book, give us another little sneak peek into it, since you're keeping it held until July 25th and you should be indicted for it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, I've given you a lot.
Yeah, you've given me a lot. You've given me a lot.
Another nugget. Okay, well, going back to the marriage and finding the right spouse. So there are 2 edicts when it comes to choosing the right spouse. One is birds of a feather flock together, and the other one is opposites attract. In other words, are we more likely to be happy when we choose a partner that is as similar to us as possible, or are we happier when we choose a partner that is as maximally dissimilar to us? Well, it turns out, gentlemen, that for long-term relationship success, the research shows that overwhelmingly it's the birds of a feather flock together strategy that works. Now, the next question might be, well, what do you mean similar on which attributes, on which dimensions? Well, I don't mean similar that you both have green or blue eyes. What we mean by similar is shared values, shared visions for life, shared belief systems. It becomes a lot more difficult to build a successful long-term relationship if you score on opposite end of the spectrum on a lot of these attributes. It just increases the likelihood of you eventually breaking it up. So, for example, my wife happens to be Lebanese. I didn't set out to, I'm only going to marry a Lebanese woman. But the fact that she is Lebanese ensured that there was a whole cultural baggage and belief system that we both came with that didn't allow us to learn these things about each other or learn, because we already come with very shared outlooks on life, right? And so that would be an important nugget that I can offer as advice to people. Birds of now, the only attribute, by the way, that from an evolutionary perspective, we tend to look for someone who is dissimilar. Can you guess what that attribute is? So, for example, I just said, when it comes to beliefs, values, outlooks, we tend to choose people who are similar to us. When it comes, for example, to height, we also tend to choose partners such that women always want a guy who's taller than them. As a matter of fact, there was a study done with 720 couples. Out of 720 couples, only one of the 720 was the woman taller than the guy. So that would be an example, again, of what's called assortative mating. Do you know what is the one attribute on which we choose someone who is maximally dissimilar to us? Can you guess? And I'm not necessarily expecting you to get it, but I'm wondering if you can.
More adventurous. What's your guess?
Oh boy.
No, it's actually a lot more basic than that.
Is it just like if I'm like
physiological?
If I'm whiter than a ghost, I'm looking for someone who's a little tanner than me, or that's not at all. I don't know.
So you mean skin color?
Skin color.
No, it turns out it's smell. So
shit.
And let me explain this.
I get
pheromones. So there's a set of genes. They're called the major histocompatibility complex. Yeah. It's a set of genes that, if you like, code for your immunological profile, and that is picked up through your unique smell. Now, we tend to prefer people's smells who are maximally dissimilar to us on those genes. Why? Because you want that your children, it's like an insurance policy. You want your children to have the maximal amount of immunological defense. And that is picked up through smell. So, for example, and this study has been done, not by me, by a colleague. If you bring in 4 people, let's say you ask them to wear a T-shirt so that their smell becomes imbued on the T-shirt, and you then take the T-shirt, you put it in 4 bags, and then you bring someone and you ask them to smell the 4 T-shirts, they will invariably pick the one that scores most dissimilar to their major histocompatibility complex. So that, by the way, that shows you that we literally are animals, right?
Yeah.
And for those people who think biology doesn't matter, what greater proof do you have that it is all biology, right?
It's all biology.
So exactly. So sometimes when you're saying, you know what, I didn't feel chemistry for him or her, it is literally the fact that their smell was not intoxicating to you. So that is the singular attribute on which the science has shown that it makes evolutionary sense to choose someone who is dissimilar to you. But for all of the other important attributes, your belief systems, your worldviews, your attitudes towards things, your moral code, it is much, much better to choose someone who is exactly the same as you.
You're very good at explaining things. You're very good at breaking things down.
Well, that's very sweet. Thank you so much. I guess I've had a lot of experience over the year in doing so. But it's very kind of you to say, because it speaks to, remember when I said that today at the cafe, a guy came up to me and, put his arms around me and said, "Oh, I just watched you on the show." He said the exact same thing you said. So it means a lot to me. And ultimately, that's the dopamine that I get.
Yeah.
That's the hit that I get when someone posts a selfie of them. I mean, think about it. They could have, when they're on vacation, there's a million things that they could be doing when they're sitting on that beach, including choosing a million different books other than mine. So when they are choosing your book to read on that beach, boy, that says something really special. Of all of the choices they could have made that day, they chose you. What could be more enriching than that?
Hold on. You got that one wrong. I'm going to make you feel even better. Forget the book.
Okay.
Forget a book. If you have somebody sitting on the beach and they're not on the phone watching some stupid TikTok thing or some dumb reel or texting some moron, and they have your book, that dopamine better be shooting out of your brain, and the serotonin better be going out of your brain, because that's the one, not the book. Just somebody having a book alone. I'm happy to see that somebody's still reading books.
Yeah.
But if they have your book and not on the phone, shit,
What if it's an audiobook?
Audiobook, fine.
All right.
I got, he's coming
Speaking
out
of which,
he's coming out with a CD too.
There you go.
speaking of which, the number one and only criticism I had for my last book, The Parasitic Mind, was that people were very upset that it wasn't narrated by me. And
I would be too. I read it.
Well, but here's the thing. I keep telling people the ultimate decision is not mine to make. So that even though I understand that when people get to know you and they want to feel connected to you, they want to hear the stories about your personal life and your voice. And so it's funny that I'm mentioning this because earlier today, this morning, I received an email from my publisher. This is the first time that I'm saying this in public. And they gave me 3 samples of 3 different narrators for the Sad Truth about happiness. And so I wrote back to them and I said, guys, I thought we had already gone through this, that there was a complete revolt from people saying that I should read it in my own voice. So I haven't checked their response yet, but just for people to know, whoever is listening to the show, I am desperately trying to be the narrator.
Well,
but I can't.
Professor, what did you say earlier? You said that one of the things you do so well is that you're able to write a book, but write it in a story-like. A story-like that you write it. But it's got to come from you.
I know.
Tell them to kick dust.
The only thing I could think of, the only reason I could think of why they are resistant to that, it must be some either logistical or financial issue, because they have to then fly me. I think I don't know, the audio publisher, I think, is out of Portland. So Portland, Oregon, I think. They fly you out, they have to pay for this, that. So, but I'm thinking that, and I don't know if this is true or not, I'm thinking that me reading my book will result in a sufficiently greater number of sales that it would be worth whatever additional expense you have to pay me for me to do it. Because it takes about
50% more.
You think so?
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. I've had, how many people have we had? Yeah. And I'm not bragging. Look, you're the man of all men, and I'll save it for when you come in, because I'm really interested how you got out of your country. But I don't want to keep you here all day because you got all kinds of stuff to do. But how many people have we had in that we got they were number 7,010 gazillion. We got them to number 1 at least for a week or two after they came on the thing. You got to read that book. You buy it. You buy the plane ticket, fly out there. You'll make it back. Tell them, no, I'll fly out there. I'll make it.
So remove the financial cost. Yep. Okay.
Fuck it. Yeah, and go out there. You read it. I'm telling you, it will be a night and day. Think how you went on Twitter just out of nowhere and got 300,000 people.
No, 3,000.
Okay,
3,
whatever.
Same
thing. 3,000 in no time, with no promotion, no anything. You got to do it. You can't have whoever reading it. They want you. People want you with the voice, with the sarcasm, blah, blah. He's going to read off a thing like this that they paid $10 to. No. You got to read this one. If that means you got to pay to fly out there, fuck it.
I might need to have you send me the snippet of the last minute, and my reply to my publisher is you saying that. Maybe that will convince him, because I know that Joe Rogan, I don't know if it was the last time I was on a show, he was chastising me. He's like, what the hell are you doing? Why didn't you read the book? And I told him, hey, here's what Joe said. And they're like, doesn't matter. The audio publisher has their own procedure. So I don't know why they're so resistant, but it's a mystery.
They're morons. Tell them you'll pay for it. You'll fly out there. And then while you're out there, you come right to here and promote it even more.
There you go.
And then I can ask you a bunch of other questions and get you guys hooked on Palm Beach. You got to read that.
I look forward to it. I can't wait to meet you guys in person. This is hey, you guys just reached Joe Rogan level. We've been at it for 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, I can keep going. I can keep going.
Do you usually go that long?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's
because one thing I copied a lot off of Joe Rogan, not because I want to bang him or anything. I just like the way he does things. People blah, blah, blah. I like the way he does it. So when guests come up, I'm very interested. So I'm very interested in you. So I could go on and on with you because I want to learn. You know, I want to learn things.
It's very like we're just sitting here shooting the shit, and he's right.
Yeah.
Like I know him. We'd be here for 3 more hours, but that's a good thing because it's engaging, and you're like I'm sitting here. I'm like, man, like this stuff we're learning, and hopefully the viewers are going to listen to and take away, instead of some guy who's like, yeah, you know, I won the Super Bowl, which is great, and then there's no other story. I won't mention the one guy we had on, but it was awful.
Yeah,
but I won't say the name. I won't say the name.
So you have this, yeah. Oh, what color is the sky?
By the way, that speaks to having profundity, right? So now, for example, I'm trying to teach my daughter. I have 2 children, but my son is a bit younger, but he hasn't reached it. So I'm trying to teach my daughter about the importance of reading, right? Because, the knowledge that I have that I can share with people that makes me interesting to talk. I mean, part of it, of course, is your personality. It's whatever charisma you have. But if I don't have interesting things to say, I can't maintain your interest for 3 hours. But you talk about this, I can pull these studies. You talk about that, I could tell you this story. So part wisdom, part experience, part book knowledge, put it all together, you become someone interesting that people want to listen to. And so I'm trying to explain to my daughter that all of she's a teenager, it's normal. She likes to do some of that silly stuff, but please read, because you could never be someone that is profound, void of having that knowledge in your brain, right? That's what allows me to roll with the punches. I could go to Stanford University and be incredibly professorial and austere and formal, or I can sit with a bunch of, corrections officers and be one of the guys. And the ability to be, we were talking about changing, right? Chameleon. I'm not changing in a sinister way, but being able to adjust to different audiences, to be able to alter your communication style so that everybody feels that they're being spoken to rather than spoken at, that you don't appear arrogant. That's a very difficult skill to have. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why many professors don't succeed out of their lanes, because they're used to only speaking in a particular way. I only speak to the anointed ones that are in my ivory tower. I don't talk to the great unwashed, the rubes, the plebs. I'm not like that. I revel in having the cop or the truck driver write to me and saying, "My God, I've been listening to your book on audio. I can't get enough of it." That gives me a lot more pleasure than some fancy professor from Harvard. So you have to.
I don't know if you've had it, but it would be interesting if you haven't. That truck driver, if you had them in on your podcast and just talk to them. So why did you?
I've thought about that.
How fun would that be, though? Right? It would just be a different lane and interesting for you.
100. As a matter of fact, here's what I've thought of doing as a like a side thing. There's a show that used to happen in Canada. I don't remember the name of the show, but the guy would just show up with this purple couch. He'd plop it somewhere on the street, and he'd put, let's say, today I want to talk about, infidelity. And then he would film people and so I thought, I just want to put out a call and just bring just a regular person, here's what has stopped me, gentlemen. You don't know what you're going to get, right? So the guy that I speak to might turn out to be the most exhilarating, fantastic person, and I'm so fortunate that we've been able to have this chat, that truck driver, or he may be an insane dud.
Yeah.
And then, so I often tell my wife, as we're walking by a whole bunch of people, let's say 500 people, I say, how many people, if I were able to find out what their story is, they'd have an incredible story to tell? Well, I'm sure many, but how do I find which one it is? That's the trick.
Yeah, Google them or look them up and find, because I think you'd have great interest in that. Have you ever brought someone like that? I've gone from sitting with Peter McCullough for 5 hours, Malone for 4.5 hours 3 times, Dr. Epstein 5 hours, to my barber. My barber. I just wanted to know.
Wow.
He had come from Cuba, and he was trying to get his father over. I wanted to sit with him and know, like, What is it like? You know, your family's in Cuba, you're trying to make money, you have to send money there, you're trying to learn the language here. What is that like? It was interesting to me. You know, what is it like to live like that? Yeah, I go all over the place.
So what I've done, as maybe you might have guessed, is I do exactly that in my personal life, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't brought the barber and the truck driver on my show, but I have met the barber and the truck driver in my daily life. So I will sit sometimes at a cafe and, people recognize me. So they come up. At first, they're afraid, they're shy, they don't want. And then I make the time, right? I stand and then, they're amazed, right? They're like, I can't believe how a regular guy you are. But what? I am a regular guy. I just happen to, to have interesting things to say. And I think that, humility even draws people more to you. Yeah. So sometimes people think when I go after someone hard on Twitter, let's say, because they're being an imbecile, that, I've got a chip on my shoulder. I mean, that's such an idiot, because I'm exactly the opposite of that. And it actually pisses me off when someone thinks that of me. Maybe I should be more stoic and not care what people think. But, and by the way, I'll just tell you this. I won't mention my name, a name, unless you were to force me to. There's someone recently.
You're more than welcome to. I don't care.
Very, very, very high profile guy who was I was one of the few people he followed. And I was happy about that. Who recently unfollowed me. And I thought, what a punk. What a little castrato, right? Because not that I think so highly of myself, but there is absolutely no conceivable reason why someone would say, I've come in contact with this guy's content, and I've now decided it's remember the Roman emperor? I've decided unfollow. And so I take great pride in being approachable to everyone, and because I'm enriched by everybody's story. So maybe I'll take you up on your
that's his loss,
bringing in the trucker.
Yeah, that's his loss.
If I do, thank you, I appreciate that. If I do, I'll give you a shout out that you were the one who.
Thank you. But think about it, if you could sit with them in a cafe, and then you talk to them. Think how interesting for you, who has all these degrees and everything else. You sit with the trucker. What made you become a trucker? What's it like when you got to go for 96 hours on that truck? I think not now. You would be the one interested, on things that
100%.
you're. I think it would be, and then it makes you more like relatable too.
And that's the hard.
Stop pulling back. Stop pulling back.
That's what. If you look at all the guys, whether it be Joe Rogan, whether it be you, whether it be Megan, anyone who has built a platform that hundreds of thousands of people say, of all the things I can do today, I'm choosing that platform to go spend my time. I think there's one thing they share in common. It's not that they all have fancy degrees. It's not that they're all neurosurgeons. It's that they are all intellectually curious and inquisitive. So that if you watch Joe Rogan, right, how can he go one day from speaking to Sir Roger Penrose, a Nobel Prize winner in physics, and the next day he's speaking to a comedian whose every second word is F this and F that? It's because he is open-minded, he's adjustable, he doesn't have he's intellectually curious, he's playful. Those are the things that the camera doesn't lie on, right? That's why I've been able to, go from, being in the fancy schmancy world of academia to, I'm a one-man show, right? I don't have producers, but it's my authenticity. I open the thing, let's talk, and as I don't know how much you know my stuff. I'm also confident enough to do a lot of skits that are completely non-professorial, right? When I don't know if you've seen me when I'm self-flagellating myself, right? I do the bit where I hide under the desk because I'm so afraid that Donald Trump, right? So I don't take myself so seriously. Now, some people will write to me and say, but when you do these things, you damage your brand as a professor. Listen, if being joyful and fun damages my reputation as a professor, then I'm not a very good professor, right? I don't have to put on an air of faux profundity for people to take me seriously. And actually, that's exactly what Megyn Kelly, in the quote that you quoted, that's exactly what she's saying, right? I'm playful, and that's why I think a lot of academics, because I get academics who write to me and say, well, okay, I'd like to kind of get into that space. What are some secrets? What's the secret sauce? I say, well, here's number one. Don't take yourself so seriously, right? You can't talk the super fancy academic. Not that I won't use good vocabulary when I'm speaking to you, but I know how to modulate myself in order to draw as much excitement from the audience, right? I remember I hadn't yet written Parasitic Mind, and an agent had written to me wanting to represent me. And one of the things he said, he goes, you know what? You need to make sure to write the Parasitic Mind in the way that you appear on Joe Rogan, so that it's not all just professor. Now, I knew that already, and that's how I wrote the book. There is a lot of fancy academic stuff, but there's a lot of sarcasm. There's a lot of joking around. There's a lot, and I think it's that mix that makes people, come back. And that's, I think, why you've been a very successful show.
Oh, thank you. And yourself, you're fun. You're fine. You'll go into the Mr. Degree thing, but then you'll explain it in human terms.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And that's what I take away from it here. I think you should teach more teachers or professors.
Hell yeah.
How to, because that's what that's the crossroads we're at. Like, schooling for kids, sometimes they hate it. And why? Because they go in there and the professor just goes blah 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 blah, and they're turned off. They're done. They turned off.
Yeah.
And I think what you do and the way you do it speaks profoundly, because I try to tell my son, I have 2 kids. I tell both of my boys, like, my wife laughs. I'll be in the grocery store and I'll talk to a 90-year-old guy. She's like, we gotta go. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, you never know what you'll learn from somebody or the stories that you'll hear. So I try to teach my kids, instead of being on the phone the whole time and doing nothing, talk to people, interact with people. And you do it in a way where, like I said, you're not throwing out these big terms where I'm sitting there going, what the hell's this guy talking about? But that's respectable, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate those words.
Pull up the professor's book again. It's coming out June 1st, right?
July 25th.
July 25th. Oh,
but
you can pre-order now.
Yes, you can pre-order now. I'm wondering, guys, do you have a sense of, so let's say the book were already out now, so we can say, okay, I can predict that it will do very well in terms of sales after the show happens. Does that also happen as easily with the pre-orders, or are people more reticent to pre-order just because they put it off to some future date when the book comes out? What's your sense about that?
In my opinion, I think they put it off. They go look at it, they see it, they say in their head, oh yeah, I got to come back for this, but it's July, and they forget. With you, it's different because, and I'm not saying it because I'm talking to you,
right?
But I think you would lose, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know.
I really hope that.
What do you think?
Go ahead.
I mean, pre-order.
He's been in media a long time. So
me personally, and this is just my opinion. What I would do is, like I said, you said July. I said okay. I guess it's just the marketing, right? Like if I feel like, oh shit, I gotta get this and it's gonna sell out and I may not have it, then I might be like, all right, I gotta go get this because this is gonna sell out. Let's just use that for an example. But if I know, like, okay, they've made 1 million copies or whatever, and I'm gonna be able to get it, I'll probably just wait till it comes out.
Put it off,
Yeah, that's just me.
Well, can I make a pitch to your audience as to why they shouldn't put it off?
Sure.
So here's what happens. When you pre-order a book, it doesn't go into the sales, like the realized sales, until the first day that the official book is launched. So let's suppose right now there are 10,000 pre-orders that are locked and loaded that we know, right? So now July 25th comes around. That first day, those 10,000 pre-orders get counted as sales, which, now why is that important? Because when the weekly bestsellers lists come out, then it gets counted straight cumulatively, all of them, as that week's sales. And once you get into, right off the bat, into the bestsellers list, then it becomes a domino effect, because then if it's on the bestsellers 1 week, it's more likely to stay longer. And then it becomes, as I said, a domino effect, like an avalanche. So to those people who have listened to this chat, if I can engage in,
Sure,
an appeal, the people who've listened to this said, you know what, I loved what these guys were talking about. I want to get this. It really matters that you pre-ordered, because then it guarantees that the sale is going to be counted right off the bat. And that greatly increases my chances of getting on the bestsellers list. So please, please, please consider pre-ordering it.
yeah,
That's it. That's the end of my spiel.
it's awesome. And then you should come in July 25th. That's when you should be here. You can ask Dowd, Robert Dowd. They were suppressing him on Calls Unknown. He came on, and I'm not saying it's because of me. It could have been a bunch of other things, but he went from him being suppressed to a bestseller.
Who was this?
Robert Dowd. He did a book called Cause Unknown on COVID, killing these young kids, with Robert Kennedy Jr.
Oh, right.
Who
yes,
YouTube suspended me for 2 weeks because of Robert Kennedy Jr. The name Robert Kennedy Jr. Yeah.
Right.
Fucking
Wow.
Democrat. I heard you like whatever his name is over there too. I heard he's a great guy.
Justin Trudeau?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's my hero.
That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, you know what? I warned Canadians from well before he became prime minister. I kept screaming from top of the mountain, and now I get a lot of people who write to me and say, "Boy, I should have listened to you." But that speaks to how fickle the human mind is, which is that, and this actually is something that I discuss in the Parasitic Mind. People use these cosmetic cues, these peripheral cues, in judging politicians. Oh, he's tall. Oh, he's got beautiful hair. Oh, he's young. Oh, he's going to legalize marijuana. But they don't look at the substantive cues. This is why you may or may not have seen me do this. I'm going to bring a prop. Imagine for a second that this is have you seen my getting drunk by the cork of the wine bottle? Have you seen this?
That one
No?
I didn't see. No.
So there's an expression in Arabic which when you translate it to English means getting drunk simply by smelling the cork of the wine bottle. Now, what does that mean? That means that you are of such weak constituency that you don't need to actually do the hard work of drinking the wine to get drunk. You just take a whiff and you're already drunk. Now, how do you apply it here? So look, now I'm going to get drunk by the cork of the Obama wine, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he's tall. He's thin. He's got a mellifluous voice. You see, I'm getting drunk. Every single syllable he says is pure, utter bullshit. But look, I'm getting drunk. So that's what happened with Justin Trudeau, right?
And Obama.
He is and Obama.
He got me drunk. I actually thought he was all right at first.
By the way, it works in the opposite way with Trump. Oh, he's disgusting. I hate him. He's an ogre. I didn't tell you that I hate him because of policy A, B, or C. It's only because of the way he speaks. He's got a brash style. He's crude. He's a Queens guy. He's vulgar. It has nothing to do with his immigration policy or his fiscal policy or his tax policy, but I'm getting drunk by smelling the cork of the wine bottle. So that's what happens, unfortunately, with the most important decision that we make as a citizen, which is choosing our leaders. We choose them based on their height, so someone like Robert Kennedy Jr., he may have great ideas, but I can assure you that a lot of people are not going to get past the fact that his vocal cords are not very pleasant, are shot, and many people are saying, that guy is not presidential. I can't be having this guy as my president, and yet he might have the greatest ideas in the world. I'll never listen to them because I can't stand his voice.
And all he did was forward the book, but just because of the name. And the reason why they did it is because they don't want, here in the state, they don't want anybody get in the way of Biden. And they're worried to death about Trump, as they should be. And I'm not right. I'm not blue. I'm for what's good. Like Trump, hate him. I don't care. You look at that man's policies. Hey, I mean, his policies seem to work pretty damn good. Yeah. And I've had all of them into my podcast, and I've heard everything about everyone except for Trump, other than the way he talks and speaks, but nobody with the agenda. I wanted to really get into with Elon, but I'm sure you got other stuff to go. But I will say that Dr. Malone was right, in my opinion. He told me a year and a half ago that he's part of it, he's going to use Twitter as a a weapon. And he would text me and throw me little hints to make me dissect them. You know, Dr. Robert Malone.
Of course, I do.
Yeah. I'm actually really good friends with him.
Cool.
Yeah. He likes me for some reason, and
for many reasons, I'm sure.
And I said to him, and I tweeted him when he put in that lady, who is the most censorious broad you could ever put in. I mean, Jesus.
Oh, you mean the new CEO?
The new CEO, yeah. She's all for the COVID shot. She's everything opposite that Elon said he was going for. So I go to tweet, and I won't hold you up too long and save my other 1,000 questions for when you come in. So I go to tweet to Dr. Malone, and I say, all right, Malone, I was the moron that didn't listen to you. I'm going to listen to you now about everything else. I could send you a screenshot of it. They censored me. They said, here at Twitter, we don't like vulgar tweets. After he got Tucker, after he got everybody to move over, after the blue thing where you could buy it. So he gets all these people to move over. Boom.
Well, then I will share, then in the spirit of reciprocity, I will share the name of the very high-profile guy who unfollowed me. Drum roll, it is... Go ahead, close it.
Let me hear.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Wow.
So Elon was following me very, very early, like in the he was following very few people.
He was right.
And that to me was exciting, and I don't care. Like, I'm not like, oh, Elon, I don't care. But to me, it mattered because Elon Musk has a very, very large platform. Yeah. I'm in the business of trying to spread good ideas. So when you get someone with his platform that can hopefully help you amplify your voice, and by the way, I had said nothing but wonderful things about him. I have a whole bunch of Saad Truth, even before he followed me. And, he was weighing in on some things. It seemed like he was a fan, and people were saying, oh my God, I can't believe Elon Musk follows you. Okay, great, no problem. Then one day, someone, I think there was like a bot that keeps track of who Elon follows and who he unfollows. People started tagging me saying, oh, Elon Musk unfollowed you. I said, that can't be. That doesn't make sense. I go and check, and he had unfollowed me. And I just thought, look, he doesn't owe me anything. But what a punky move. Like, it makes no sense, right?
He's the arm. Everybody's looking at Obama, Gates, Biden. I'm going to come save Twitter. Come move over so I can get your data. I'm going to encrypt. Malone said this specifically. And not only Malone, who the hell else was it that was up there on Malone's level? Maybe Peter McCullough?
Peter, bro.
They were like, look, this is what he is. Blah, blah. No way. This guy, he's invented everything. You can't take away from what he's invented, but he's a part of them. There's no explanation why he would put that woman in there, unfollow you. I put Malone up on Twitter, which I never used Twitter. I would just read stuff. But I said, I fell for it, even though I had these guys that are 1,000 times smarter than me telling me, no. I put Malone up. I lose 62,000 followers. All of a sudden, it drops 62,000. And I think, did I do something wrong? Whatever. So, in my opinion, Malone was right, and then he unfollowed you for no reason. It is crazy over here, buddy.
What are you going to do?
Nothing.
Not everybody loves you. Who cares?
Who cares? Let them be with the agenda. They'll burn one day somehow.
There you go. By the way, speaking of Palm Beach, Worth Street is in Palm Beach, correct?
Half a mile down the street.
Okay.
If you take your wife there, you better have your wallet ready.
I know. Yeah. I was there last year. Okay. Quick story. I discovered the greatest antiquarian bookstore on Worth Street. Do you know it?
Yep. It's right on Worth Street. There's a place called Taboo for lunch. I don't know if you went there for lunch, maybe.
I didn't go there for lunch.
Okay, it's maybe midway down Worth Street.
The street. So I walk in. This was last about almost a year ago now. Oh, I think I had gone to do Patrick Bet-David show.
Yeah.
But he's further south. But anyways,
yeah.
So we were in Palm Beach. I find this antiquarian bookstore. And there was I took a video of it and I posted it all over social media. They had a copy. So as an evolutionist, of course, I love Charles Darwin. I love Origin of Species, which is 1859 book. They had a first edition, $400,000. So
wow.
You can bet that whenever I will have the pleasure of coming seeing you in person, the first place I'm going to go visit is that antiquarian bookstore. And if there are any billionaires listening who want to donate $400,000 to the Dr. Gad Saad Fund so he can get a first edition of Origin of Species, I'll share the wire transfer route with you soon.
And you can start with pre-ordering, which will be in the link at the top. It will say your name, and the link will be right there before I even get into all the great things that you are. So it's right in front. And when you click on it, it will take you right to Amazon. It won't be the bullshit thing that other people do on Spotify and others and don't put the link in where it takes you to the site. So we'll take you right there along with everything else. And get here as soon as you can, man. You'll have a blast here.
Thank you so much. You guys have been such a joy to talk to. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that I came on. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to seeing you in person.
You'll be here soon, please. Please make time to come.
Guys. Pleasure talking to you.
Very fun. You have a great day, sir.
You too. Thank you, guys. Ciao.
Thank you.